It is my honor to welcome you to the 22nd anniversary celebration of the Accra Comprehensive Peace Accord. This year's theme invites us to peace, to pause, to reflect, and critically assess our progress on the commitments that usher in peace and that lay the foundation for national recovery. Over the years, successive governments have made commendable efforts to move our nation forward. Yet, the practice of stepping back to take stock honestly and rigorously has not been part of this process as it deserves. This gathering seeks to initiate that process with a purpose. At least, at the last 21st anniversary celebration, we convened a historic dialogue between government representatives and defunct former warring factions at the ministerial conference in Toronto. The goal was to foster recommitment to the agreement and to have a shared strategy for its continued implementation. I have to say, unfortunately, the forum quickly shifted to a cycle of blame shifting, with each side pointing fingers rather than embracing collective responsible movements to underscore the urgency of today's discussion. As we take stock today, several crucial areas demand our attention. Number one, rule of law. More violence continues to challenge the integrity of our justice system. The institutions meant to uphold rule of law, that include the police, the courts, the prisons, the corrections, must be strengthened to restore public trust and ensure justice is not only promised, but it is delivered. I remember going to, in one of my work around the country, researching access to justice. I met a circuit judge who was also traveling along that route, and we interfaced in the Ghana. And he asked, "What are you doing here?" I explained my mission. And he said to me, "Prof, justice is available for all, but justice is not affordable by all." The other area that demands our attention has to do with land conflicts. Land disputes remain pervasive across the country, exacerbated by weak enforcement of land governance processes. The question remains, when will we confront this issue with the seriousness that it demands? Many times when land matters are getting into conflict and crisis, the police is underserved, they are not equipped, and sometimes they do not reach the crisis before it erupts. When it erupts, then we have a large contingent of peacekeeping way after the damage is done. That demands our attention for this reflection happens to be accountability and transparency. These principles have become more mere slogans, repeated only by those who undermine them. The slow pace or outright inaction on reported cases of corruption has eroded impunity. Alarmingly, individuals who strive to uphold integrity are often verified as threats to public interest. Service delivery suffers as personal gain overtakes national duty. Next, I should really concentrate our reflection today hopefully, is the area of politics. Our political landscape is increasingly shaped by a majority vote that feeds excluded from education, economic opportunity, and social mobility. This group now rallies around their own often elected leaders who reflect their frustration rather than national aspirations. We must ask, are we still matching the titles with competence, or are we watching our seriously societal slip through our fingers? Number 5, drug abuse. We commend the National Awareness Campaign of August 7, 2025, yet few experience present troubling realities. 1, DEA officers that we have met everywhere across this country claim that they do not know where the drug hotspots are, while everyone in the community knows exactly where these hotspots are and who are selling drugs. Citizens, on the other hand, who report drug activity usually face retaliation. In one community, and I will not name that community for their own safety, traditional leaders took matters in their own hands, launching a grassroots cleanup campaign that drove drug lords out of town. This night, they demand, is that how we want to address this issue? It's time to reflect. The next area of critical reflection should be education. In the past 22 years of Liberia's existence, many students are performing 3 levels below their expected academic standing. Unfortunately, teachers are more vocal about salaries than they are about standards. The number of untrained educators are increasingly filling critical roles, even in the critical fields like nursing, engineering, and the likes of it. The consequences are very visible in every sector of our society. I will pause here because we have the privilege that we have experts among us who will delve more deeply into these issues with an insight and clarity. On behalf of the President of the University of Liberia, Dr. Annan, who will be joining us shortly, I want to extend a warm welcome to each of you. May today's dialogue be honest, constructive, and informative. Thank you and welcome.
The voice of Professor Tabishi, Director of the Kofi Annan Institute for Conflict Transformation.
With that, I want to invite, I know he wrote a dossier which I'm not going to read, but I will say what I know. We have for us to do the keynotes on this very great occasion. Dr. Josiah Jokar, currently serving as Director General of the Civil Service Agency, a transformative leader, a revered civil servant, a humble gentleman who I'm pleased to say I've come to know. Joe, I will elaborate hours about about you, but I just want to say thank you for honoring our invitation to kindly do the keynote for this occasion. You are welcome.
Thank you, Paul. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, esteemed government officials, excellencies, members of the diplomatic corps and international partners, security sector institutions, academics, civil society leaders, women and youth groups, religious leaders, the media, and my dear fellow Liberians. Today, we gather on this historic hill, specifically at the University of Liberia, my alma mater, not merely to record a date on the calendar, but to honor a covenant that rescued our nation from the jaws of destruction. 22 years ago, in Accra, Ghana, Liberians of every stripe sat together, warring factions, government representatives, political parties. It was more than a peace treaty. It was a national rebirth. It was the covenant of survival. It was Liberians choosing life over death, reconciliation over vengeance, and dialogue over destruction. And so today, we honor them all. The government of Liberia, the Liberians United for Reconciliation and Democracy, LUR, the Movement for Democracy in Liberia, MODEL, the political parties, civil society organizations, the women, and the youth who stood very tall, and the religious leaders who prayed us through the storm. We honor the special, which rallied the world to confront one of Africa's longest and most devastating conflicts. Above all, we honor the people. The more than 250,000 killed, the millions displaced and exiled, the countless families torn apart, yet still holding on to the dream of a peaceful Liberia. At this juncture, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to please stand with me to observe a moment of silence. Thank you. These officers. The Accra Comprehensive Peace Agreement closed a dark chapter in our history and opened 22 years of reconciliation, endurance, resilience, and growth. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, before I go forward, please permit me to pause and express something deeply personal. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the director of the Kofi Annan Institute, Professor T. Davidson, for the exceptional honor of inviting me to serve as keynote speaker at this historic ceremony. 9 years ago, I worked under his supervision while completing my thesis. I must confess, I was scared, unsure of myself, and worried whether I would ever graduate. His discipline was strict, his policies were tough, and his standards were uncompromising. And yet, they significantly shaped me. They forced me to rise. They built in me a discipline that has never left me. So when I received his invitation to stand here today, not as a student, but as a national leader, entrusted to deliver this keynote, I was amazed and very humbled. And I was proud of myself because it was a validation from my own mentor that I had, by God's grace, become worthy of my confidence. So, thank you, Prof. Sandy, my mentor, my teacher, and my friend, for believing in me then, and for honoring me today. Ladies and gentlemen, the first fruit of the Accra Comprehensive Peace Agreement was the ceasefire. Think about this. Over 100,000 fighters disarmed. Communities once dominated by militias finally breathed again. Families who lived in camps in Guinea, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire began to return. The National Transitional Government, led by Chairman Judy Bryan, inherited a broken state, but began with courage to rebuild, to restore basic services, to open institutions again, and prepare the ground for elections. And in 2025, my dear fellow Liberians, ballots replaced bullets. Liberia, at last, chose democracy. My fellow Liberians, let us remember, when the ACPA was signed, Liberia had no real national army. We had militias. We had armed factions. We had security forces that served individuals, not our nation. The ACPA then demanded a new beginning. And so the armed forces of Liberia were disbanded entirely. Every soldier, every commander, and every unit was rebuilt from the ground up, supported by the United States and other partners. New army was created. An army trained not only in tactics, but in ethics. An army where recruitment was based on merit and inclusivity. An army where soldiers swear allegiance not to a warlord, not to a tribe, but to the Constitution of the Republic of Liberia. For the first time in our history, our army truly belongs to the people. And today, Liberians proudly serve in international peacekeeping missions wearing uniform of a reformed armed forces of Liberia. The Liberian National Police was also transformed from a broken, politicized force into an institution tasked with protecting citizens, not oppressing them. Thousands of officers were retrained. Irregular paramilitary units, like the anti-terrorist unit, were dissolved. Standards of professionalism and civilian oversight were introduced. Let us be clear. The peace we enjoy today is fragile, but it is real. And it exists because Liberia turned its back on militias and embraced national security institutions rooted in democracy, merit, and accountability. But security is not just enough, because peace is not only about silencing the guns. Peace must also mean confronting the truth. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the TRC, gave us a framework. It collected over 22,000 statements from victims and perpetrators. It documented massacres, atrocities, and human rights violations. It provided recommendations for justice, reparation, and healing. It was not perfect though, but it gave us something precious. It gave us memory. And yet, 2 decades later, much of its work remains undone. Many recommendations remain ignored. Victims still wait for closure. Perpetrators are walking freely. My fellow Liberians, let me be honest with you. Reconciliation without truth is shallow. Peace without justice is fragile. That is why the government's decision to establish the War and Economic Crimes Court is historic. It signals that Liberia is finally ready to stop dancing around the truth, that perpetrators must account, that victims must see justice, that the culture of impunity must end. This is not vengeance. This is not division. This is accountability. This is the only way to ensure that Liberia never again returns to war. The Accra Comprehensive Peace Agreement was not only about peace, it was about governance. It established institutions designed to prevent the abuses that have fueled the war. The Governance Commission was tasked with reform. The Public Procurement and Concession Commission was designed to ensure transparency. The National Elections Commission was strengthened to safeguard our democracy. And because of those reforms, Liberia has held multiple free and fair elections since 2005. We have seen peaceful transfers of power, unthinkable during our years of conflict. But democracy is not just elections. It is also accountability. It is transparency. It is the fight against corruption. It is the courage to decentralize power so that every county, every district feels the presence of their government. So let us be clear. Liberia is not yet the democracy we dream of, because corruption significantly lingers. Institutions are weak. But compared to where we stood in 2003, we have moved mountains. And that movement is owed to the framework of governance born from the Accra Comprehensive Peace Agreement. Yet, peace requires memory, and memory requires action. The St. Peter's Lutheran Church, my own church, especially the one on 14th Street, the Cathedral of the Lutheran Church, where more Liberians were massacred in 1990, must be preserved as a national shrine, a place of mourning, but also a place of learning. The 13 poles on the beach where our fellow compatriots were murdered, marking the disturbing 1980 executions, must be replaced with a dignified national monument. and of course the Providence Alley, the cradle of our republic, must be transformed into a national museum, chronicling our journey from settlement to independence, to conflict, and finally back to peace. When we remember, we heal. And when we heal, we build. But remembrance alone is not enough. We must also rewrite our history. For too long, Liberia's story has been told in fragments, glorifying settlers, minimizing indigenous contributions. This has perpetuated exclusion, deep exclusion. We must tell the whole story in its entirety. Settlers carried the dream of freedom. They laid the foundation for independence in 1847, yes. But indigenous people, the Va, the Pele, the Kru, the Bassa, the Gio, the Ma, the Madingo, and others that I have not named, also sacrificed, resisted, and shaped our destiny. Together, settlers and natives created Africa's first independent republic. Together, they inspire many countries like Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, and others to rise against colonialism and forge for self-governance. My dear fellow Liberians, let me be clear. Unless we confront the entrenched Americo-indigenous divide, we cannot heal. That divide has been the root of our destruction, our underdevelopment, and our backwardness. We must bridge it with honesty, with inclusivity, with truth. That is how we unite. That is how we move forward. Education is the shield of peace and sword of prosperity. President Joseph Numa Boakai Sr. has rightly prioritized it under the arrest agenda, but reform must go deeper. Yes, early childhood, primary, secondary education are vital foundations, but we must invest in tertiary and technical education. Our TVET institutions, our colleges, and our universities. Curricula must align with the reality of labor market demands. Faculty must be developed, and our infrastructure must be modernized. Education must produce not only degrees, but skills, integrity, and creativity. My dear fellow Liberians, the civil service is the backbone of governance. And Prof, I'm sure you knew I was going to talk about that, obviously. For too long, it was weakened by patronage. But I tell you, change is here now. For the first time in 18 years, President Boakai reconstituted the examining committee of the Board of Appeal, which is independent of the works of the Civil Service Agency. Civil servants today have an independent grievance and complaint management system. Since I took over as Director General, over 260 cases have been received and nearly 200 resolved, with many of which require wrongful dismissals to be overturned. Civil servants no longer fear arbitrary suspensions, dismissals, and transfers. That era is past. Today, dignity, decency, and accountability are returning, and merit-based system is being introduced at all levels. civil servants are held accountable for punctuality, performance, and productivity. But let us be clear. The public sector cannot be Liberia's largest employer. A weak private sector burdens the state, stunts growth, reduces tax revenue. A strong civil service requires a strong private sector. We must create jobs. We must implement the Decent Work Act of 2015 scrupulously. No foreigner should hold a job that a Liberian is qualified to perform. Companies must return unskilled and domestically trained jobs to Liberians. This is not xenophobia. This is fairness. This is economic justice. This is the law. And we must implement it. Other nations do it. Ghana prioritizes Ghanaians in employment and public access fees. Or maybe, let me explain what that means, public access fees. I've been to Ghana several times. If you go to the Kwame Nkrumah Museum today, a Ghanaian adult will pay $40 to access the museum. Non-Ghanaian, including ECOWAS citizens, will pay 65 cedis to access the museum. If you go to the Car Museum in Accra, 100 adult Ghanaian will pay 100 cedis to access it. But non-Ghanaian, including ECOWAS citizens, will pay 200 cedis to access it. If there was a job in Ghana and a non-Ghanaian and a Ghanaian find themselves in competition, of course, you know the Ghanaian will take the job. This is not xenophobia again. This is how Ghana prioritizes its citizens in all spheres. That's how Nigeria, that's how Kenya, that's what they do in their countries. We are loving people, we are peaceful people. We believe in freedom. But our freedom must not undermine and compromise our economy. It must not undermine the economic status of Liberians. We must prioritize Liberians. We must do the same for Liberians, as I indicated, because unless Liberians are prioritized in their lane, we undermine peace itself. Health is peace. In the aftermath of the war, hospitals were destroyed. But Liberia fought to rebuild. During Ebola and COVID-19, we learned our weaknesses and we also learned our resilience. Today, healthcare volunteers, nurses, pharmacists, and doctors are being transitioned into our national payroll system. Community health programs are being expanded into rural areas. For the first time, we directly brought 44 pharmacists onto the payroll. We are in the process of bringing healthcare volunteers who have worked for 6-7 years, volunteering into the payroll system. We have brought 600 volunteers for the first time into the payroll system. And we have another batch that we are bringing on. We have brought 39 intern doctors you used to see in the streets demonstrating along with the pharmacists, manifesting for their rights. We brought them into the national payroll system. That is intentionality. That is how we keep the peace. That is how we sustain the peace. But we must do more. I must confess. We must invest in modern hospitals, equip our clinics, and train our specialists, because healthy people are peaceful people. No nation can sustain peace without roads. Since 2003, successive governments have invested in roads and infrastructure. Well, now, honor the arrest agenda. This continues, but much more is needed. Roads are not just pavements. They are lifelines. They connect farmers to markets, patients to hospitals, children to schools, and communities to opportunities. Infrastructure, bridges, electricity, and technology are peace itself. Without it, poverty will breed instability. Agriculture, my dear friends, is not only about food, it is about dignity, and it is about peace. For decades, war destroyed farms. Farmers abandoned their lands. Food imports soared. Liberia became food insecure. But today, agriculture must be more than substance. It must be agribusiness. Agribusiness means farmers are not just surviving, but thriving. It means investment in processing plants so that cassava, rice, palm oil are not just consumed raw, but exported as finished goods. It means vocational training for youth in agri-technology. It means providing farmers with access to credit, modern equipment, and storage facilities. Studies show that no nation has achieved lasting peace without securing food, and no nation has developed without turning farms into agribusiness. Liberia must become a nation that feeds itself and exports to others, because when we feed ourselves, we not only reduce hunger, we strengthen peace. But let us be clear. While war has ended, crime remains a threat to our peace. Petty theft, armed robbery, gender-based violence, and drugs, which we are all talking about today, has become a national discussion. These are daily realities for many Liberians. And while they may not make international headlines, they undermine confidence in our security and justice systems. Many of these crimes are fueled by poverty, unemployment, disillusionment among young people, and also by the weak enforcement of laws. Many of these crimes we must confront. We must confront them on two fronts. Through stronger law enforcement, yes, we agree, but also through prevention. That means jobs for young people. That means rehabilitation for addicts. That means community policing. That means ensuring that women and children are protected by both law and culture. Because if Liberians cannot feel safe in their homes, in their markets, and in their communities, then peace remains incomplete. And finally, let us never forget that Liberia's survival after 2003 was not achieved in isolation. It was ECOWAS that deployed peacekeepers on an echo mill even before the United Nations arrived. It was the African Union that rallied the continent. It was the United Nations mission in Liberia with nearly 15,000 peacekeepers at its peak that stabilized our nation for over a decade. It was bilateral partners, the United States, the European Union, China, Ghana, Nigeria, and others that invested in rebuilding our institutions. But today, my fellow Liberians, the nature of partnership must change. We cannot depend forever We must transition from dependency to self-reliance, from aid to trade, from donors to investors. That means forging economic partnerships that bring factories, not just handouts, infrastructure projects, not just temporary relief, capacity building that empowers Liberians, not just expatriates. And let us be very clear. Liberia must approach partnerships with dignity. We must negotiate agreements that prioritize our people, that protects our resources, that creates jobs for Liberians first. Oh yes, I believe in that. That create jobs for Liberians first. Because a partnership with our sovereignty is dependence. And dependence, my friend, is another form of bondage. So, as we commemorate 22 years since the Accra Comprehensive Peace Agreement, let us recommit. Let us recommit to unity. Let us recommit to reconciliation. Let us rewrite our history truthfully. Let us implement justice. Let us reform governance. Let us build our schools, our hospitals, our roads, and our farms. Let us create jobs for Liberians first. Fellow Liberians, 22 years ago, the Accra Comprehensive Peace Agreement gave us a chance to live again. Today, let us honor that legacy. Let us thank President Wakai for rejecting patronage and embracing justice, for putting human capital at the center of development. Let us build schools that prepare our youth, roads that connect our people, hospitals that heal our sick, institutions that serve with integrity. And above all, let us remain united in our conviction that Liberia will never again return to war. May the pain of our past give us wisdom. May the sacrifices of our people give us courage. And may the Almighty God bless the Republic of Liberia. Thank you.
The voice of CS Voice, just like you can serving as guest speaker at this occasion.
I think he deserves another one. Since I'm going to be fire, why don't I shake your head? So you see that not your me know how to give grade. You see, everybody's reading you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
David? Someone is calling you there. Oh no.
So that's the demand. And go and fix for it.
I will send you the capital.
Thank you.
And you will distribute.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I think this was great thought for food. Usually people say food for thought. This is thought that we should really consume, especially some of us who stay hungry very long. This is thought for food. Thank you. Please allow me to make a small shift in the program based on a special request. My good friend, Dr. Jacob Masabuga, the ambassador of the Republic of Germany to Liberia, has asked that we kindly shift the remark because of some other pressing engagements. So, Ambassador, we will kindly ask you at this point to make a remark, but please stay with us as long as you can. So you're welcome to make a remark.
everybody. Please allow me to stand on existing protocols. First of all, I would like to thank Professor David Sandeep, my dear friend, over the years. I've participated in many interesting events, last year also in the commemoration of the Accra Peace Agreement, and so I'm very happy and feel honored to be invited again. I would also like to say thank you very much for the truly patriotic speech of the Director General of CSA. We have already met equally in various occasions and have had interesting discussions at my embassy and at your office. And special remark also to the university, the president cannot be here apparently at this moment, but we've had many interesting events, discussions, and gatherings here in the university. Almost sorry that it is not my alma mater. My alma mater is the University of Zurich, which is where I did my master's. So I would like to make comments in three fields. The first one is Germany's contribution to Liberia's development after the end of the Civil War. The second one is how do we, Germany, see Liberia today. The third one is an outlook towards the membership of Liberia in the United Nations Security Council as of 2026. So let me start with our contribution after the Civil War, which was plurifold. I think the central element was certainly reconstruction of infrastructure, and there I would like to mention especially the topics energy. You may know that Kofi, the so far only hydroelectric power in the country, which was reconstructed after the Civil War, had a heavy cost of say $350 to $60 million, of which my country paid 18%, and also paid through the European Union, which financed another 20%. We also financed the famous substations of the CLSG, Cote Liberia's electricity transmission line, and we also financed one of the distribution areas in a piece of land between Monrovia and Haynesville. So in production, transmission, distribution, altogether my country invested $130 million for Liberia. The reconstruction, of course, also comprised education and healthcare. In education, we developed, for example, the latest one is the period school in Central City, where road construction, electricity, plumbing, piping, carpentry, brick welding, all these fields are educated, are taught, because we're convinced that for a thriving economy, we will not just need big companies, we will not just need small farms, but we need middle class, and we need family enterprises. So we need qualified staff below the academic level, but those who at an early age can become independent entrepreneurs, can based on their education in the fields I mentioned, establish companies, can generate employment, can pass these companies on from one generation to the other, and become taxpayers, and therefore active contributors of society. In terms of healthcare, over the years, and rather over the decades, we invested a lot in, especially in the Southeast, where we have programs from GSS and KFW, just to mention the laboratory in Harvard, thanks to the J.J. Dawson County Hospital, which nowadays is a laboratory of excellence. We strengthened strengthening the health college at Annan University. We built an isolation station after Kofi in Fishtown, Village, and we also right now are building the new county hospital for the county of Kofi in Sweden, apart from many other projects in healthcare in the Southeast, which are financed with money from German taxpayers, which was our interest. civil war. We are also heavily invested in the protection of natural areas, like the national parks, and in security. These are projects which are not so well known, but for example, in the promotional control of small arms and light weapons, which is a regional project. Many of these projects fall either in the responsibility of the African Union or ECOWAS, which was already mentioned, and are implemented by GSF. And last but not least, our contribution to the Kofi Annan Institute for Conflict Resolution. Apart from the moral support, we also sent Dr. Hormone. Where is she? Is she in the room? Okay. She's hiding at the back. That's a German contribution to the strengthening of the institute. We finance the solar energy installation, so we're trying to be of help where we can, be it with personnel or with logistics. So far, our contribution to Liberia's development after 2003. Let me now come to where do we think Liberia stands today. And I will make reference also to the patriotic speech that we just heard. I think there are a lot of positive things to be noted. First of all, from our perspective, we are faced with a thriving democracy. And that has been shown in various instances by the peaceful and orderly transfers, not just one, but several, of power after elections, the latest one in 2020. That is really an achievement which maybe 10 or 20 years ago not everybody would have thought possible. And as I was an election observer in 2023, went to various polling stations in Monrovia and Gainesville, the suburbs, and I could see the strong will and the aspiration of the people to participate in the elections and therefore in democracy and to maintain peace. So I talked to a lot of people, and I think this is really a condition which is by now deeply enshrined in the Liberian populace. On the other side, some of the factors, the difficulties, the challenges have already been mentioned, and I would like to come back also to two fields which I mentioned under the angle of power population. So I refer to education, I refer to health, but I would also like to refer to the economy, since the question of Liberian jobs for Liberian citizens was mentioned. Education, the deficiencies are obvious. 50% of children do not attend school. And of those, other 50% who attend school, many go out driving. So what was mentioned before by Dr. was that skills are needed. And without skills, you do not get employment at a certain level of qualification. The same goes for healthcare. It is obvious that there are still strong deficiencies in healthcare, in spite of all domestic and international efforts. And I think the best example for this is that you sometimes see or read in the newspapers that prominent political figures travel abroad for medical treatment. This should not be the case. Liberia should arrive at a stage where heart problems or other conditions can be treated in the country. So education and health. Now in the economy, from our angle, of course it is desirable that Liberian jobs go to Liberian employees, but you need something which we would call investment climate. And the investment climate, which should attract foreign investors, starts with the regulations, starts with the constitution, and as you all know, there are entrepreneurs here in the country who drive the economy, who are Lebanese, Indians, who have been here for decades and who cannot acquire citizenship because the constitution does not allow. Unless you are of Negro descent, you cannot acquire citizenship. So they are confronted with an internal status of being foreigners. They have to renew their residence permit, the re-entry permit, the work permit, the licenses for their companies year by year. That does not promote the investment climate, does not promote Liberia as an attractive destination of foreign investments. The second one is that, again, the skills and the investment. Investment in skills, that's education. But then the investment, we are always invited to foreigners, conferences, fairs, various settings to invest in Liberia. So, if a German investor asks me, Ambassador, what do you think, in which field should I invest? I can tell you there's mining, there's a lot of things, there's agriculture, and so forth and so on. But then they will say, and what do Liberians do themselves? What do they themselves do? Do they invest in their own country? And if you look at all the big companies here, most run on foreign capital. If you look at hospitality, if you look at the compounds where most of us are living, most run with foreign capital. So, investment climate, I think, needs both sides. It needs, of course, jobs for qualified people, but it also needs openness towards foreign capital and regulations that do not put the foreign investor in a weaker situation than the local investor, and needs more Liberian investment. Thirdly, looking forward, I think one of the most important elements of present and future is, of course, reconciliation. It was mentioned in detail how Liberia got from 2003 until now, 2025. So looking ahead, the already mentioned World Economic Finance Board needs to be better. The office has been created by the presidential decree. The presidential decree is reviewed. The office is now functional, but reconciliation is also time-consuming. Because many of those who might eventually be tried in front of the court, the war crimes court, may pass some have already passed. So the war crimes court, if it wants to contribute to real reconciliation between perpetrators and victims, if it wants to promote justice for all, it needs to be scaled. It's time to do it. And I can also see that the two courts, the one of economic crimes and the one of war crimes, are not exactly the same. So the two, in terms of legal technique, should rather be separated, because the one of war crimes will need international support, whilst the other one of economic crimes can basically be realized domestic needs. And international support should not mean that we, as the international community, replace Liberian. Rather, the other way around. It should be Liberian-owned, Liberian-led, and on that basis, we, as the international community, can support and build assistance. Because we all know that reconciliation in this country has been, is, and will be a crucial element of peace. And peace is a precondition of conflict prevention. Conflict prevention, in turn, is cheaper than peacekeeping. And peacekeeping is cheaper than war. And I think both nations have come to the conviction, Liberia and Germany, war is never ending. Thank you.
The voice of German President.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hogan, German's ambassador to Liberia. And we just want to tell you, our solar unit is still working and functioning. Thanks for your intervention. All right, we are making progress. We are now coming to a very crucial stage of this process. Dr. Rafael Coleman is hide it somewhere. I need some assistance on this stage of the process. We are going to have selected individuals do short presentations, and following that, we're going to already around where you are. Some people will need to be moved if they are not close enough to the working group they should be working with. But we will listen to these presentations and we have discussions in our various groups, and those discussions will be captured by a panel, and that panel will summarize the takeaways and the recommendations that we'll be working with. So I'm going to start inviting our experts, and please keep the time here. We ask you to do interventions not exceeding 10 minutes. If you can do it between 5 and 7 minutes, that should be our average here. So thank you very much in advance. So we're going to ask Dr. Cesar Griffiths, who is chair of the Civil Society Working Group on Security Sector Reform, to make a presentation relating to disarmament and the security sector reform process in Nigeria. Thank you, Dr. Griffiths.
Thank you, Prof. Sunday, distinguished guests, colleagues, participants. Allow me to stand on existing protocols. 22 years after the signing of the ICT, we are here to reflect and to see what next we can do. As we are all aware, the ICT was a turning point in Nigeria's history, ending years of violent conflict, restoring peace, and laying foundation for reform. So my short presentation is to revisit the provisions of the peace agreement related to security sector reform, assess progress, identify challenges, and propose steps for the future. Now, under Article Part 4, Article 7 and 8 of the peace agreement, there are several provisions that included the disbandment of irregular forces, restructuring of the armed forces of Nigeria, which entailed complete demobilization of combatants and restructuring into a professional, apolitical, and ethnically balanced army. And then we have reform of the police and other security services, including immigration, the special security service, customs, and other statutory security units. It also looked at security units within public corporations and autonomous agencies like the LPRC, the Post Authority, Forestry, and then you have the DDR program. Also look at civilian oversight and accountability and the role of the international partners. Now, what was the expectation of this reform of the security institutions? One, they expected that all service personnel should be screened with respect to educational, professional, medical, and fitness qualifications, as well as prior history with regards to human rights abuses. That was particularly so for the armed forces. The agreement also anticipated that the restructured forces shall take into account the country's national balance, and it shall be composed without any political bias to ensure that it represents the national character of Nigeria. And more importantly, since this restructured security forces shall adopt a professional orientation that emphasizes democratic values and respect for human rights, a non-partisan approach to duty, and the avoidance of corrupt practices. Now, how far are we? What are the achievements so far? Well, disarmament and demobilization, with over 100,000 combatants disarmed and leading integrated. You have a new armed forces, restructured with the support of the U.S. government, and gradually deployed in peacekeeping roles. We have police reform. The police was trained with efforts to improve community policing. Legal and policy frameworks were developed. We have a new Police Act, new Immigration Act, National Security Reform and Intelligence Act. We have LCC and others. The armed forces also have a revised new act, 2008. Civilian oversight was also looked into. We have the civilian complaints review boards of the LNP and LIS established to promote accountability. And most importantly, we have peace and security. We have not returned the civil war in 22 years, which is a major achievement. Now, if we look at the challenges in the SSR program, first is limited resources, equipment, and training for almost all the security institutions. Professionalism and integrity, persistent issues of corruption, politicization, and misconduct. Of course, corruption is endemic, and our law enforcement agencies have been singled out as maybe one of the most corrupt. But I want to look at the issue of politicization. There is a non-partisan approach to duty. But politicization, which refers to the process by which institutions responsible for public safety, such as the police, the military, intelligence agencies, and other law enforcement bodies, become influenced, controlled, or manipulated, rather than operating independently and professionally in service of the law and public interest. We see that happening, particularly in the last administration, when hundreds of partisans were infused into the security services without going through the process as laid out by policy or law. Public trust is another challenge. Communities still distrust some of the security agencies. Sustainability is another issue. We are heavily reliant on international partners, inadequate domestic funding, and for oversight and accountability, we have weak parliamentary and civil oversight. And I must say, and I will continue to say in every forum that I attend, that there is a need to enhance the capacity of the Civilian Complaints Review Board of the police and the immigration. Because complaints against police, violence, moral justice, if we have oversight panel that you can go to when you have an issue against the security services and they're able to respond appropriately, then most of these issues will be resolved. But since the establishment of the CCR in 2019, the government has not 1 cent in the budget for that institution. And so we continue to advocate that funds are made for the CCRB. First year, we were in operation, we received over 750 complaints against police officers. The second year, it dropped to 500 or more. And it is dropping. But they need the support because they need to decentralize. They need to engage the public. They need to have town hall meetings. Now, the last of these challenges is the emerging threats, cross-border crimes, drug trafficking, cyber threats, and indeed for maritime security. So how do we reaffirm the ICT, ACTA? In order to reaffirm commitments, there are 3 things that we need to take into consideration. We should accelerate policy reform, policing reform, and strengthen professionalism. Enhance civilian oversight. Strengthen parliamentary committees. Security committees, defense committees in the House and Senate need to be strengthened to be effective in their oversight role. Of course, improve resource capacity, increase the budget allocation for security institutions, invest in logistics, technology, and infrastructure. There is a new thinking at the academy that they need to train tailors to be trained police uniforms instead of going outside and bringing expensive. They also want to train mechanics to design the same police cars, as a means of their own way of reducing costs. Foster public trust. We need to deepen community policing, transparency and other citizen engagement, depoliticize the security services. Because when you politicize the security service, it erodes public trust, it weakens institutions, and undermines professional conduct, and it facilitates democratic backsliding. We need to improve our partnership with ECOWAS and other international partners, include regular assessment, joint planning, and accountability reporting. Address the emerging threats and advance defense and security transformation. Do you know all of these reforms that we're doing? Only 2 institutions were reformed: police and armed forces. Fire service, DEA, corrections, all those institutions have not been reformed. So we need to continue the reform process. And to conclude, the ASCPA is not just a peace agreement. It was a roadmap for Liberia's rebirth, and security sector reform was central to ensuring that Liberia would never return to war. While progress has been made, challenges remain that require renewed commitment, political will, and inclusive reforms. So on this 22nd anniversary, let us reaffirm our commitment to a professional, accountable, and people-centered security sector that safeguards Liberia's peace and democracy. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary. We kindly encourage our speakers to keep within Professor Larry Towan, the acting chair of the Governance Commission, who will speak something around the issues of demobilization. Professor Towan, you're welcome. Thank you. And let me just say, he quoted that all this information this morning at 1 a.m. But a professor like him, I know him. I know. Prof, thank you. Thanks for being there. Thank you.
Professor Larry Top.
Your Excellencies, officials of government here present, academic leaders, senior military and security officers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is true that I received the invitation this morning, but this is the reality that we live. I was asked to say something about demobilization. As you all know, demobilization is part of an interrelated process, the DDR era. After war, we want to build a peace, we want to disarm, demobilize, rehabilitate, and reintegrate. Demobilization implies the formal breakdown of warring factions, the separation of combatants from their command structures, from their leaders. The separation of combatants from their command structures requires the atomization of those commands, the separation of the individuals so that they come to live their real citizens on their own, under the laws of the country. That may be challenging. We did a study commissioned by UNDP in 2007, and we came to the conclusion that while the process was not completed, because in the post-war period, armed robbery was occurring with rapid frequency, we reached a conclusion that at least much was done. And thanks to ECOWAS, thanks to the AU, thanks to the United Nations, and on this occasion, we have to just congratulate the leaders of our region, our continent, the world, for giving attention to Liberia in such a critical period. Demobilization required the movement of combatants to designated location, cantonment sites, so that they were separated from the general population, fed for some time. They were given some cash incentives, but they identified that there was a dynamic process of migration during the war, from rural to urban Liberia. When the leaders of those warring factions ceased to take responsibility for all the young men and women and the youth that came to urban centers like Monrovia, in the face of the lack of employment, they imagined too that warring factions were not so responsible as to create responsible administration in the areas for which it took. So they just interested in competing for power and wealth in Monrovia. That therefore many of the young people who came had no skills, they had no education, they had found other means to survive. So they found support system among their friends that they knew. So informal structures, came into existence. Every armed gang that runs has a leadership. We are still contending with that today. Demobilization was done, but much has been done still to remove those small arms from Monrovia, from Liberia, because they are not registered, they are not controlled, and efforts have been made some way, somehow to encourage our young people to look for other means of dialogue, other than the arms used during the war, which they got accustomed to, and which they are still using today in our world. When you fight war and kill human beings and commit war crimes, you violate not only national laws, but international humanitarian law. We are required to bring impunity into account. So we don't have to face the possibility of being required to demobilize and look for fighters in the future. Anything that happens in society has an antecedent cause, antecedent factors. If those causes exist, what happened in society in the recall? We are thankful that after about 20 years, we are still building the peace and no more factions are raising in Liberia to challenge government or to fight on the basis of the search for wealth and power. So we think that it is important to welcome the War Crimes Code. It is part of the process of bringing impunity into account. And one good thing that is happening in Liberia society is decentralization, which is a process we started to conceptualize right after the war, under the early Johnson administration. And today, decentralization is on hold. We are involved in the training process of our local government officials. But even if we decentralize, government creates the enabling environment for job creation by the private sector, road construction becomes important, electrification becomes important, thanks to the international partners and communities that are helping us in this regard. And we think that public-private partnership should be encouraged in Liberia, much more than ever before. So just to say, Professor Seni, I thank you very much for the invitation. I was sitting in the working group session on demobilization. I do know that, as I said earlier, there is something that's related to rehabilitation, reintegration. Most of our young people just reinserted in the communities. So as several speakers come to talk about rehabilitation, this is important. Because it's much more difficult a process. Because they take people from all over the country who have no relatives in Monrovia town, who cause harm in their own communities, who are very afraid to go back to their communities and be incited in these supposedly civilized communities is difficult to accommodate. When academics, policy makers, security experts get engaged with such conversations, I think it is promising. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thank you. Really appreciate your comments. They are very salient.
Thank you.
Yes. Here myself, around 1 a.m. this morning, and I was trying to communicate on the road. He was asked to come and perform here, and we can see that he has done a very, very excellent job. I have the honor also now, probably one of the most challenging areas, but to call, and that's why he's sitting there, otherwise we would be there. Dr. Laman Nyanton, the Deputy Minister for Youth and Sports for Tibet, who will now come and speak to us on the stages of rehabilitation involving the aspects of technical vocational education in that area. Thank you, Mr. Howard.
Thank you. Good morning. It is good to be here, and I want to thank Dr. B for inviting us to join in this conversation. And I also want to say thank you for the foresight in having Dr. Chubak. He has a picture as someone who is continuing to shine the light as far as bringing the kind of reform that is needed at the level this he has always not everyone is going to recognize that. So I join like everyone else in the same spirit of reflection as we commemorate 22 years of the Accra Comprehensive Peace Agreement. And I'd like to say, as one who comes from an extensive background of peace and conflict resolution, most especially if you have to look at nations that have been to war and how they rise from the ashes of war onto peace building and state whole. You realize in the context of Liberia, we have followed that path, whether it was the DDR program, or it was the security sector reform, or it was even rebuilding our local communities and encouraging community leaders to accept ex-combatants back into the community, or generally just civil society getting engaged into the everyday activities of post-conflict reconstruction. And I think an institution like the Kofi Annan Institute for Conflict Transformation is perfect. Only 2 years later, still keeping the torch, serving as a beacon for hope for the next generation, but also as a beacon for inquiry, scholarly inquiry that is much more needed to enhance the composition that we're having. So when I used to talk about reconciliation in the context of technical vocational education and training, I'd like to put this in context first and foremost. When we talk about TVET, generally we talk about skills development. Skills development is at the center of technical vocational education and training. And if you look at the composition around skill development, first I'd like to take it from the national perspective. We cannot talk skill development without talking about the human capital dimension of it, where we're talking about improving the skills, improving the capabilities, improving the knowledge of our population to be able to compete in the world of work, to be able to actualize the full potential and the well-being. And so, the profile of our nation today is one that, if we look back in the last 2 years since the season on fire, we realize that the profile of the nation lies in a singular proposition. The Nigerian nation is faced with acute skill deficit. And this reveals in the areas of work. We have shortage of skills in our workforce, and we are not supplying that skills to the world of work in the labor market that employers are so desperately in need of. And part of that reason, we could assign different reasons to that. But part of it would be as a result of weaker institutions, weaker academic and educational institutions across the country. Most of our institutions are supplying skills that the economy is not currently asking for. Taking the academic sector, for example, our universities are still supplying skills in management and accounting and sociology, whereas you have a stockpile over several years of people who are graduated in those disciplines that have not even formed the first job. And so the economy is no longer asking for that. I think the critical shift of our economy now should focus on the sciences and technical and vocational education and learning. We also know that from data and stats, most especially with the Human Development Index, we stand at 0.32%. And what I'm amazed is that a child that is born in Liberia today stands ready to succeed at 32%. If all other basic necessities of life were given him, 32%, lower than what we have in the region and across the world. So that means that we have to invest more in skills development of our people. We have to strengthen institutions that are getting the next generation of leaders ready for young people. And so if you look at all of this, all of what's happening nationally, and with a laser focus on TVET, it is affecting the TVET sector to a large extent. Over recent years, we've seen a sector that has evolved. In 2014, the first ever national TVET policy was rated and validated in Nigeria. But that was the beginning of the kind of serious step needed to nationally conscientize our country that there is a large alternative other than academic that we can take, especially when they hire number that breaks you, they have a number of young people who were demobilized, and they hire a number of young people who are graduating from high schools and never getting into college. And so we needed to amplify the message around TVET. And thus, we formulated and drafted the first national TVET policy. That policy expired in 2020. And so in 2022, we rewrote the policy, although much was not achieved as part of the cardinal objective of the first policy. So we rewrote the policy, encapsulated all of what most of what was contained in the first policy. We've also been able to, over the last 10 years, we've also been able to expand TVET infrastructure thanks to those of our donors in part. I see the ICT content directly there. The German GIZ, who's helping with TVET with the private sector, the European Union, who has invested extensively through UNIDO, and they have been working to expand the equitable distribution of TVET services across the country. They launched what we call the New Horizon Project, with a goal of ensuring that in each country there's a presence of technical vocational education and training. So we proceeded in having at least 7 out of the 15 countries, with the hope that by the second phase of the New Horizon Project, we will complete the remaining countries. But basically, it's not just building infrastructure, not just building buildings. They are also attaching with this infrastructure what we call skills workshop. The skills workshop in mechanics and auto mechanics and carpentry and plumbing is intended to have TVET institutions see a new way of how they can reimagine itself by ensuring that they can generate resources of its own and sustain itself for a period of time. We have also been able to pass the national team of hope. When you look around, you find TVET in the private sector as well as TVET in the public sector. There are a lot of scattered agendas. There are some TVET institutions that are offering certification for 6 months. There are others that are offering certification for 12 months. Like ABC is offering certification for 18 months. How we are granting certification at the level of TVET. We want to address that. There are also among stakeholders. So we have TVET at the Ministry of Youth and Sports, we have TVET at the Ministry of Education, we have TVET with the AITB. So there's a scattered agenda in terms of even the governance of the sector. This new law will provide an opportunity to establish a Nigerian TVET Commission, of one governing body that will be responsible for the regulation and enforcement of all TVET activities across the country. So given all of these efforts we've made, there's still quite a few challenges. One, we still have the lack of equitable distribution of our services. Like I said, we have the presence of TVET in 7 out of the 16 countries, and we're looking to extend that. We have no pool of qualified TVET instructors. So between 2014, 2015, 2016, what used to happen is that 2 of our partners will have 6 or 10 persons from Ghana or Kenya or Zambia for specialized training. But we realized that it's very expensive. So we decided that around 2018 that we'll have and launch the first ever National TVET Teachers Training Center. And it's been launched, it's been operating since 2018 at the Boga Washington Institute. And just this month, we have done the groundbreaking of a multi-purpose $1 million state-of-the-art infrastructure building that we want to erect. I think that's because for all of our partners partners who are working with us. We also feel that women involvement in TVET is very minimal. And I'm using NBDC as a case study at this time. So 1 in every 10 students or term members enrolled at NBDC happen to be female. So there is a great gap in terms of how women and girls are accessing TVET services. We are working around that to see how we can increase women participation by working with very organizations and community organizations as well to ensure that we can have increased number of females involved in TVET activities. Another challenge we face with is the fact that there is a growing number of young people that are not considered at-risk youth that are not on drugs and substance abuse. And they are a population of low cycles. We've been having active data with them. There are 142,000 of them in Montserrat alone, and over 300,000 across the country. We have been working to see how it is possible to get these young people transition to TVET, to skills development. Because the truth of the matter is that I haven't seen anyone or ever read in the newspaper that you find with the UN agency, a non-profit organization, you find a resume for a job, a professional job. You don't find a resume for a professional background. Never. And so these people have been running back for the past 5 years, 10 years. There's a possibility that they will hit their late 40s and 50s, and there's no other career for them. So what do? They tend to be a national burden to the society and the economy. And we have to watch out for one thing before I just conclude. There's this concept called the green building. It's the aging of the nation's population. So as we have today, over 75% of our nation's population fall under the age of 35 years of age. And if you took from 0 to 35, it's hitting around 8%. If you calculate the next 25 years, we have a nation of Asian population. And if these young people are not getting the adequate skills, the necessary technical know-how, they want to move into the Asian population, into the adult age, where they're still dependent on social services from government. And that's going to be a burden for us. So it's something that we have to think about as we engage in the conversation around TVET, which I do not believe should only be left with TVET policymakers and stakeholders. Every citizen should be involved with this conversation, whether it's adding your voice to the Senate to have the passage of the TVET Commission Act has been there for 1 year, or whether it's paying or charging your community fees to go to NBC or PTOTC, do something and let's collectively move our country forward as it relates to TVET. But thank you very much for having me, and all pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. All right, I will say some few comments as we listen to our experts. I now have the pleasure to invite Dr. Moses Morozena, former Vice President of Academic Affairs, former Minister of Agriculture, former colleague and friend. Dr. Zena, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. I will just tell you the existing protocol. I see a lot of senior citizens here. I want to acknowledge you for the information you gave to some of us. And we pray that you will live longer to become, so that we want to follow your footsteps. You may have heard a popular song when we were younger. In the 70s, by Bob Marley. Hungry man. You never notice that until you begin to grow up, because when you're young, food is always available. I'm using that very loosely. It's not always available. You can teach them hunger. But I think some of the musicians are philosophers. I mean, I'm not talking about these days now, they just take it. Because AI can make it easy for you. For musicians to sit down and just solely reflect on what's happening in society to make a song. Indeed, a hungry woman, a hungry boy, a hungry man really can be an angry person. Maybe you haven't tasted hunger, but hunger is really excruciating. Yes. So I want us to just reflect on that. It's a topic that you all know. Food first. Because honestly, we all know that food is very important. But in the context of our conversation here on bringing peace, there's no debate that food really is important. Post-war, food was one of the weapons people used either to help you to reintegrate or to use you. I know young people were put in the war because they were struggling. So if you gave them small food, you joined their army. You didn't know they were going to give you weapons, they were going to kill. So really food is very, very, very important. Over the last 20 years, 2 decades now, various governments have invested in this area. And one of the good things that we do very well in Liberia is that we are very smart people who can write policies. And I've been fortunate since I came back in 2009 at various levels in the sector. We have good documents. And we really were intellectuals. I listed almost 10 documents. And in my latest, I'm getting older. I'm in my mid-60s, going to the other half of the 60s. If you took those documents and you dissected them, nothing is different. It's the implementation mechanisms. And my brother is telling me, so what? Is what we haven't gotten at. My colleagues at the ministry, Alex Nuta is my colleague, we do teach at the University of Liberia. I go here, Deputy, my own senior, the local candidate, all the specialists are here. And these documents, the architects are still alive. One of them is the Minister of Finance, very smart. We have one at the Senate, planning and finance. Honestly, I say, I don't think there's a lack of knowing what we need to do. My frustration is we keep changing the names of documents to feel that it's hours that we've done. I'm talking like a Liberian broadly. There's no lack of policies. We use different terminologies. PAPD, this, and then my uncle with the arrest. They are good documents. What I'm trying to get at is, honestly, our problem that we have had so far is we are not paying all the implementation mechanisms. I'm saying it out of the context that in the last 5 months, Donald Trump has taught us some lessons. Very hard lessons. It's not only in agriculture, it's in education. When I was VPAA, one of the investments that we were taking that I really wanted was investment in early childhood. And I'm going backwards because of one stuff that my mentor, the president of the African Development Bank, he correlates the relationship between young person. What he's saying that when you're hungry, you can see it in the way your government performs. Stronger children leads, when you have a stronger child, it leads to stronger economy. Now, don't wonder what the hell was going to do. He spoke about my PhD, very young guy, we just told me in the past. But if you take that into consideration of how agriculture is important, how food is important, if you are hungry as a young kid, how will you think to become a teacher? How will you think to become an engineer or a doctor? When you're in class and your worry is, first of all, you won't It's not because you don't have the capacity. It's because the correlation between being well fed to learn so that you become impactful. I'm talking in the context of food and peace. I'm not talking agriculture because we know that the documents are there. The Dr. Akwe from Penny, he can pontificate and bring us as to what the new government is doing or what previous government have done. But the question remains, why we stay where we are? Because of the implementation mechanisms. And as I get older, I do advise other colleagues across the continent, my age group, they are now in power. Once they went to there's not going to share with us what you did when you're minister. I said, yeah, you should be to share my painfulness, or we want to talk again, because at some point that you get older, you don't want to talk. The talk can become a painful experience because you stay where you are. So I'm sorry that I'm talking to them. I'm talking, but what else? Some of the contributions to agriculture since we had peace, or the semblance of peace 20 years ago, or 22 years. We had actually added value when peace came back. Food was used to bring people to bring about some provision was like a magnet. You came, you were fed, and you can think about how you start your life all over again. So everybody has become really important. And then we're fortunate, and this is where the transition comes in. We're fortunate that because of our war, the EU, the Americans, the ADB, the World Bank, they all keep. Most of the money was used for rehabilitation to start out working from foreign pockets, foreign portfolios. The game has changed. And this is why I think our colleagues who are fortunate to be in government, if I'm in government, I'll be really afraid. Because it's going to be more difficult to deliver. You deliver with less. Because in the past, you have some extra money that you could use as a buffer to waste a little bit, but everything is going to count. And where is the penny coming from? They're asking us to use natural resources to do that. Is there available? Maybe. So they say we should cut that cost. What do you cut the cost? Say education? No. Say agriculture? No. Everybody will protect his or her area that he or she is managing. So, what are some of the challenges as we move ahead in this sector so that I can come to the closure? First, and as we here can tell me, we are getting less than 3% of the national budget for agriculture, direct funding. If we continue that way, forget about it. Let's forget about it because you say we're not being in the same shape or form. And you look at all the countries are in crisis. Suppose Ukraine, suppose you have people, the German ambassador say, I don't think they're going to disperse money easily like used to do in the past. So our budget has to be looked at. Where do you get a comparative advantage? Education, that money, there's no debate. Stunted citizens will lead to stunted economy. That one's clear. If you don't eat well, you will also suffer. So there's certain areas that you can invest and the local effect will be felt. If they go roads, if you don't have people who can mitigate it, forget about it. Another challenge, Dr. Joka mentioned it. For the food sector, land tenure is a big issue. In fact, I know this is one of the countries where you can have 200-300 acres of land. If you don't use it, you still own it. Burkina Faso, where I work, Mali, Benin, after several years you don't use it, goes back to the government. They reallocate it to those who use it. There are piece of land here forever. I think that will be visited very soon with the land authority and others. Because in agriculture, my colleague at the bank tells me we don't make agriculture sexy. To the entrepreneur, they should see that it's profitable. How you do that? When we even sports, my colleague who just spoke, because they have very youth and be attracted to do that. So that other policy things, as we already know that. But I didn't want to end on something. And it was on debate, and one minister took pay attention to it. I was surprised, but not surprised. The recent 2024 Homeland Index, when I was we were coming down, then we became stable, then from 2016 to now, the rate of hunger has risen. So almost 1.9% of that person are hungry. You want peace, but be careful. That territory is hard for people to make sense. Go back to Bob Marley. So I think we need to pay attention to this thing. I didn't want to end up on a sad or a little bit of a difficult note. But the reality is Liberia is in crisis when it comes to food. And then when you have 20% of your kids stunted, they can't compete. Teachers people have to spend a lot of time on young people so that they can pay it and break their eyes up, learning becomes fun. But if 30% of them are stunted, then peace will be far fetched. Food and peace. So let's just think about it. But two persons reacted to this. Dr. McIntosh read out the report and he was more proactive and said, we need to do something about it. Then the president of the African Development Bank was not using Liberia, but you're looking at the indices from that report to say that Africa will not compete if hunger becomes persistent. So I just want to say the positive way that I'm happy that we have this conversation. Without food, peace is not possible. But it is not all hopeless. We have the intellectual capacity to know that human beings have to eat and human beings have to survive. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Very informative and to the point. Do we have the drug enforcement agency here? The DEA? Sorry. Okay, we want a lot of challenges to get through to them, in spite of the many commitments. Finally, we heard that, we want a chain of command, and the boss have not authorized and designated, we will find it difficult to be there. So, unfortunately, we are not going to hear from them, and it's crucial as the issue of drugs are. We will have been so helpful to hear from them on this occasion, but we will move on. We have our presentation from Honorable Professor Logan, former Executive Director of Liberia Refugee Repatriation and Resettlement Commission, LRRC. Dr. Logan, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Please allow me to spell this representative of the international organization, your president, corporate official, I'm here, director of the LRRC. Professor Sullivan, thank you so much for inviting me here with the responsibility to speak on the role of the LRRC, to focus on radio integration. Liberia is the signatory of the 1951 Convention relating to the status of refugees. This convention was ratified by the National Legislature of 1993, thus bringing in the form the Liberia Refugee Repatriation Resettlement Commission. The primary responsibility to provide international protection for refugees, asylum seekers, stateless persons, and other persons of concern in the Republic of Liberia. The LRRC as an institution responsible for the reintegration and resettlement of detainees, effectively collaborated with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in coordinating the return of Liberian refugees. The Archdiocese also coordinated humanitarian assistance to returnees, IDPs, and other vulnerable groups. The role, what is repatriation in the context of durable solutions? Repatriation is the process by which refugees, migrants return to their country of origin or a former place of residence. During our Civil War, over 750,000 civilians became refugees or were internally displaced. Civilians spent over 3 decades in countries like Ghana, Mali, and Nigeria. In 2024, the UNHCR, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, facilitated the return of 155,560 Liberian refugees, emphasizing on safety and dignity. A cessation of refugee status was announced in 2012, leading to repatriation efforts. However, many refugees still face challenges that prevent them from returning home. I don't know whether we understand that we still have Liberians who are still refugees in other countries. Thousands of Liberians are still refugees in other countries. There is a process called the Global Solution Project, of which the refugee have a chance to either come home or stay in the country of hosting. Many of those people opted for refugee status, stating that they could not come back to Nigeria based on many news that their parents were killed and all kinds of news they have. For example, last year we witnessed from Ghana over 1,000 individuals who were still in Ghana and were repatriated by the Nigerian government. There are 520 individuals who still in Ghana on refugee status. 520 still there. Integration of Nigerian refugees is challenging orientation of migrants. We have the IOM representative here, he gave better wishes. Many of those people that came are returning. While many of your boys, the young folks here, are looking for livelihood and survival. Many Liberians take on other nationality, use foreign passport. And went overseas. They are migrants. But every time they are repatriated, because the necessary mechanism is not in place, before you realize, they get back in place or run out of medium and go back to look for the village. Some of them express security concern, for example. Some said they killed their parents, they killed their friends, and some said their properties have been confiscated by others. So when they return, what they have at their house will be occupied by another person. And so they cannot return. As I speak to you, we still have those people in other countries as refugees or migrants. Lack of access to essential services, for example. A person who spends 30 years in Ghana and comes back home, he or she is educated. He or she is a professional. But will come back home and they cannot have anything to employ them. they get frustrated, or that frustration leads them to die or return to the host country. Intercommunal tension, dispute over land, ownership, property rights, and major concern for detainees, hitting that ability to rebuild their life and livelihood. For example, there are some detainees who came, there's a country in our country where people came back home and other people still reside in their space. They have done everything, but they cannot get back their land. It's a problem. It's a problem. Limited support. Many returnees often face difficulty appreciating the support given to them because they felt that the support was insufficient, particularly regarding financial assistance and access to resources of building their home and livelihood. Lack of access to education. Returnees, children especially, many of these kids come. They don't have the means. The children are not going to school. Some of them start selling on the road. If you went to the second junction, you'll see returnees children are there. Those kids in the middle of the road, they are not in school. I have one of them talking to me the other day and he's contemplating going back to Ghana because there is no, even though he's an IT engineer. It's still a problem. Need for reconciliation. Many retainees come back and they are bullied in the community. They are ostracized in the community. They are discriminated upon in the community. And for this reason, they return. I want to make you a recommendation. How can we have an effective integration process? Not just for detainees, but even our drugs users. The FWC have amended. I believe there needs to be a policy reform of the FWC because the act establishing the FWC is obsolete. It does not have what it takes for the current day reality. We need policy on integration, for example. How do we integrate people in our society? Let me explain something to you that you don't know. And I think the director there of the enterprise will tell you. You have in your country now over 40,000 to 50,000 Burkina beings all over your country. They are in Neymar. They are in Grenada. They are in Maryland. They are in River G. Interestingly, when at the enterprise in the last mission I took with the IOM, we went in the forest. Many of those people are in the forest. They need to be profiled. If care is not taken in the next 10 years or 15 years, if all the people will integrate into your society and you wouldn't know who they are. So the policy reform, the enterprise has we also have the issue of statelessness. Liberia is among 25 African countries that are at risk of being stateless, becoming unleashed. Those people came out. We don't know where they come from. We also were in other countries. There's an instance of 320 persons in Ghana when we went there to profile them, and they could not identify. They are not Ghanaians. But they're in a country of the world. The immigration and us found it difficult, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs found it difficult to identify, so we call them the red-coded. That's just in Ghana. What's about Cote d'Ivoire?
What about Togo? But when you talk to them, you know that they are Liberians, but you can't chase them. There is a national status action plan that is before cabinet and the executive director. He knows that. We believe that that particular document needs to be approved by cabinet and operationalized. We need that. Legislative review to align with international standard development and inclusive response policies, establish an effective referrals mechanism for retainees. Like I said, you got people who are engineering companies, but they sit down. It is the role of the electoral powers to ensure that those people are integrated. They have an effective referral. So, for example, you came there with your PhD in something, the electoral powers should contact the relevant institution to ensure that you are integrated into the system. Access to essential services, ensuring returning and host community have equitable access, one, to education and vocational training. Not everybody can go to school, academic school. Not everybody can do that. Employment opportunities, we need that. If we do not provide employment opportunity for leftover of our people, our young people, trust me, two things they're going to do. They're going to live here and go far places. They're going to Europe. And many of them die in the desert. Many of them die in the ocean. Most of the people you see that, majority, some of them are Liberians with different nationality. So if you don't prepare them, if you don't provide the employment opportunity, trust me, no guys will still go. Or sometimes they get involved in the drug addiction. Economic empowerment promotes self-resilience through vocational skills, job placement and career counseling, microfinance support for small businesses, those of them are going to get into it. Social and psychosocial support facilitating integration through community and family-based support through world network. Now, one thing I want to inform you, most of the people that come back as migrants, detainees, or refugee detainees, the story behind them is they are very terrible. Most of those people were abused. I remember at ROM Brown, a lady in 2022, she was used by the cartel to transport drugs. They bore her and she was carrying the drugs. I don't know where she's still living. And she came out sick. Psychosocial counseling is very important for me. Let me not take all the time and say thank you to the organizer of this program. And it's an honor to be here. God bless you.
Thank you, thank you so kindly. I don't know when our heart goes so we say, oh, this is heavy. When the next speaker we say, oh, this is so much of concern. But one thing is sure, whatever the task, we can surmount. Quickly, I will make a few remarks before we go into the working group, and I will be very quick because we don't want to recapture time and we'll make the working group section also shorter, because this will be an ongoing discussion as we leave from here today. I just want to remind us that we can never say we have peace if our children do not feel safe. During election, when parents have to grab their children and put them inside to hide them from our men who want to use ritualistic sacrifices to attain power and wealth. If our children are not safe, we don't have peace. Two, for people who have the luxury of wantonly distributing drugs, I want to say to you, please go to the central bank, and I'm glad we have a former bank governor here with me, he's listening to me. Go to the central bank, take all the money you can, take everything out. We can bring new money and put it back. But the destruction of our youth, we cannot replace. 3, our natural resources. Liberia continue to be rated as well endowed. We teach all the sciences of natural resource management, geology, and all of these civil engineering courses. Why is it that Liberia continues to be only a place for exploiting our natural resources? When are Liberians going to wake up to the reality that, hey, these resources belong to us? We will hire somebody who will come and we say to them, we got that one here, dig it out, give it to me, I will pay you for your services, I will sell my diamond, I will sell my iron ore, and the resources belong to me. When are we going to wake up to that? The only thing we are interested in this country is for concessionaires to provide us few jobs. A few jobs were a wonder for us. Go to Bonnie where LMC operated. Go to Cape Mount where the NIOC operated. Go to Yetepa where NAMCO operated. Go to Bond Mines where BMC operated. And many other places around this country. Some of the documents we've been able to get hold of tell us that over $200 billion of natural resources have been taken out of this country, and what does Liberia have to show for it? We are still doing the same thing, same management contracts, as they call it, MPA, management development agreement, or whatever they call it. Why do we continue to do this for ourselves? Even after 22 years of peace, how can we think differently? And lastly, we still have our education system, and thank you, Minister, for hinting on this a little bit. I just want to emphasize it. We still have an education system where the critical needs of our country are in agriculture, education, engineering and creativity, medicine, and the rest. But over 70% of all our educational institutions provide economics, accounting, business management, and sociology and union. Not that they are any less important. What I'm hoping we can think about is where are our demands and how do we direct our education to meeting those demands. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to ask us, you are already mostly around the table you should be in for the working sessions. And basically, you have few questions, I think there's about 2 or 3 questions to respond to in the working section. The one is, what happens and what should be done in the area, whether it's demobilization or rehabilitation or reintegration or whatever? What are the critical steps? What are missing links? But then come up with recommendations along that area of what can be done. We want to pull all of this together, and we want it to be the outcome of this forum. Thank you so much. We will now start our working sections. So this is
and then we witnessed free, fair, and democratic election. That was one of the blessings that we made. And then the next one is whether we will be able to fully disarm We said no. And the reason for that no, we said the time was quite short and the lack of our logistics, bad condition. These are probably factors that they here that would like to came on to full disarming. And then we talked about the lack of cooperation from warring factions and the combatant. I think it's still also. Then we asked the what I going to do a full disarmament. What happened to next? We say the collaboration of small arms and light weapons around the country. I think a lot of people stated that, so we will not spend much time on it. And we say we experience armed robbery, drugs, or substance abuse. We all have faced that in that period. And then we move further to our recommendation. So we say that the empowerment of the executive order number 141, which states that all small arms and light weapons in possession of citizen or any other person should declare and be able to register it. That will help us also to bring most of the weapons that were left out. So that process also help us. And then we talk about budgetary support for all TVET programs around the country. And lastly, the Accra Comprehensive Peace Accord should be included into our national curriculum so that people who were not born at this time and they are born now will be able to get ideas where we came from and where we are now. So that's basically the whole plan.
This group presented in 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Thank you very much. All right, we now go on to rehabilitation, starting with rehabilitation and culture.
Thank you, Prof. And let me recognize the Minister for the Young People. Mr. Bamali, you are most recognized. Good afternoon to everybody. It will be very brief. We just wanted to say what are some of the lessons that we captured. We look at the entire process from disarmament to rehabilitation. To say the process was more like quick impact project. It allowed us to move as quickly as we can to disarm these people and say we rehabilitate them. It wasn't deeply rooted to say let us actually go deeper to rehabilitate our young people after fighting for 5, 6, 7, 10 years. That did not happen. The second thing we said, ex-combatants were not given sufficient psychosocial education in transforming their minds from the civil war that went through up to where we are. And this is the reason why today we are still experiencing young people still are traumatized, young people are still more violent. Most of them did not go through sufficient psychosocial training that they should have actually gone through. Those are some of the lessons that we pick up. There are a lot, but we'll just pick up those two. So quickly to our recommendation for rehabilitation, we said, more especially linking it to agriculture, there are a lot of things we should have been taught or maybe they should have been drifted into, more especially in agriculture. If we had taught our young people during the rehabilitation process to let them know that agriculture is a way of life, agriculture can help them have like income generating activity, it would have been better for them. Two, oppose the propaganda that Liberia is still unsafe. That is not true. Liberia is safe. But let us actually give them the mindset that Liberia is now safe for whatever they think they want to do, more especially to get involved into agriculture. The next thing is, when they get involved into agriculture, what can we do for them? is to actually start giving them all of the best agronomic practices. To say to get involved in agriculture, we will assign extension workers to you to advise you, to give you the right seeds that you're supposed to plant, to tell you what is the right soil to plant, to give them all of the advice that we actually need to get involved into agriculture. Now, we also want to be able to create some level of competition among our young people to see agriculture as a way of life. It's a livelihood for the young people. How are we doing that? Now we are having this thing we call the farmers market, where young people will come with their farming produce and actually showcase to the population, and the population, government official, whosoever goes there and buy from our young people. We are trying to do that so that we create competition among them. And we are doing a lot of publicity and training for young people to change their mindset. We want to move to change that mindset that this can work. Agriculture can work for our young people, agriculture can work for our older people, agriculture can work for everybody. Prof, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. All right. Next, rehabilitation drugs.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll be speaking on rehabilitation and drugs issue in post-conflict Liberia. So we'll be looking at lesson learned and recommendations. One of the lessons learned are lack of proper rehabilitation framework. We noticed that ex-combatants were placed into vocational training without psychosocial evaluation. Another one is sufficient psychosocial support for ex-combatants. No structural counseling was provided to help individuals cope with trauma and integration. So look at the quick impact program field. Short-term rehabilitation effort lack follow-up, leading to relapse and misuse of support. We have lack of national ownership. Program was donor driven with minimum Liberian government involvement. We look at the use of drugs. The trauma were passed down from war-affected parents to their children. After 22 years is what we are seeing. Border control, law enforcement are ineffective in combating drugs trafficking. Policy review. So we've with the lesson learned, now we come to recommendations. One of our recommendations, policy review and reform. We need to revisit our existing rehabilitation drugs policies from the NTGL era. Two, we need to strengthen national ownership, empower Liberian institutions that lead the rehabilitation efforts, and enforce capacity. We found that more Liberians, few Liberians have rehabilitation centers, but the support from government is not there. So we need comprehensive rehabilitation program. Not only to take those from on the streets, but what next? So we should talk about long-term and support counseling follow-up. After graduation, you put maybe 20% outside from rehabilitation center, they on the streets after graduation, what next? You find out that they go back, they relapse, because there is no follow-up, no counseling, because drugs is the mind. If the main mind is not occupied positively, people will go back. So community and education, we need to launch a awareness campaign using public graphic content, meaning that in schools, when we talk about about drug-related issues, we should put pictures that our children see the effect of drugs physically on their body. So they will know, instead of us seeing it, they will see what drugs mean. That's the least. We need to improve our border and law enforcement area. Because we found out that a lot of our borders, they are vulnerable everywhere. We have a lot of agents, but we don't have law enforcement in these places to combat drugs. So we'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Next is rehabilitation feedback. If I know rehabilitation is finished, okay, reintegration. Reintegration. Rehabilitation. No, they are reintegration. Reintegration.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am Robert Cassell. My colleague and I will be with a presentation on behalf of the reintegration, task force, Anyway, after this, the next thing is that you have to reintegrate people back into society. And our group discussed to realize that this reintegration not only the ex-combatants, but you also have the internally displaced persons and the refugees that you have to integrate into society. And so, taking into that consideration, we said that there are basic services, that have to be made available to facilitate reintegration. That is mobility and what have you. So we said. We observed that after the civil conflict, there were a lot of migration, rural to urban migration. And we cite an example of Monrovia being a case study of that, effect of that migration. So you had overpopulation of people in Monrovia and other, provincial cities. And we also understand that where these people came from, for example, were also destroyed. There were villages that were shut down to the ground. So if you want to reintegrate people to places where there is no accommodation, there is no infrastructure, it becomes difficult. And so our group took into consideration how we want to proceed with reintegrating people back to their communities when you do not have the infrastructures there. Especially so when you look at Monrovia, overpopulation, how do we depopulate Monrovia, and how do we spread this population to other places? But in doing so, we should also look at sensitization. We want to sensitize people, irrespective of combatants or whatsoever, that these people have to be accepted back into society. That is, you should accept them back into society, and you should not discriminate against them and say these guys were the ones that broke our village, killed my sister, killed my brother, and so we don't accept them back. And so you make the reintegration process difficult. So we should not discriminate them. But equally so, for the refugees, for example, we observe that these refugees coming back, they have skills. Some of them have skills. Now, how can we make use of these skills so that we need to put in place a selection of profiling of various skills that these people have brought back, and even those that were here, that went to different vocational institutions? How do we integrate them and provide them, make them useful to society? Then, of course, we said that the reintegration process was also short. They were short, and then they lacked social cycle, and then also the institutional capacity, for example, the LRRC lack the institutional capacity, lack of and the infrastructure, like I said, were also not available, and so they needed to have those infrastructure in place.
Alright, so we are so sorry that we were into our 2 minutes. So for the recommendation as a team, we'll come up with few recommendation. One, there is a need for our national government to invest in structural development for these people who we are working to integrate within our different societies. Another way that there should be a national reintegration policies that when these people are coming back within our community, the citizens should be aware what they are coming back for and what are those different skills they are coming to offer. And another way that sensitizations need to be at a very high pace where there's a need for more awareness, even in school and as well as the grassroots level. Psychological support, there's a need for these people to be built psychologically that will help them to not go back to that old life, that when they come back, they will see themselves as we are citizens instead of them coming to cause problem in our society. So because of time, we're going to stop here and thank you all.
We still have one program. It's reintegration, rehabilitation team.
Thank you, Prof.
Place it over it. Place it over it.
Okay. See? Building a vision. All right. My name is Rebecca Beshi. And we're going to do a quick run-up through our lesson learned. All that you see in black is our lesson learned. And all that you see in blue is our recommendation. For the rehabilitation for Tibet, we said one of the missteps that didn't cause the rehabilitation to actually work successfully was one, the misinformation in the recruitment process. What do we mean by that? Well, we'll get back. We said non-self-sustaining skills development. We said lack of respect for Tibet institutions. We said poor reintegration. We said poor incentives of instructional staff for Tibet workers. And then we said non-standardized curriculum for Tibet institutions. For the recruitment process, one of the first things that happens in Nigeria almost every time, people by the time they say, let the child go to a Tibet institution, so what? The child is not tall, the child is doing well academically, why should they go there? So the mindset for Tibet is that those who are dropped out, delinquent in society, they are the ones that are supposed to go to Tibet. Whereas we have to work on our mindset, or else they don't know that Tibet is one institution or one way that we can build the nation. So that mindset has to be changed. Then we say, provide simplified and detailed information about the benefits of Tibet and introduce a culture of role models. Another thing here is we have not had people who have gone through Tibet and are making it to be role models. Because if you find a role model that can say, look, I did my Tibet, this is why I have my college education whatsoever, I've gone through Tibet and I'm able to make a life highway. I'm going to do success, okay? But they don't have this kind of people. People shy away from it. When say, this person is a teacher, you know, I'm a degree holder. Okay? And then the next thing, integration of career counseling into all-to-death program. Psychosocial counseling. We will need that. Alright? Then we said, for the new non-self-sustaining skills development, we need new innovation in the TCS sector. Definitely, you do the job survey. When you do the job survey, you know which one is required and needful. We said lack of respect for TCS institutions, we need to create awareness to foster in-depth understanding of the importance of TCS. Then we said poor integration, foster a system of combined rehabilitation and reintegration for community and the young people. Then we say poor incentives, and then we repeat the sentence. And one of the serious things I did is standardized curriculum, national standardized curriculum for all institutions. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was the final group. That was the final group. Thank you so much. Now, in order to accelerate our processes so that we can manage the time we got to be able to read it, so we immediately call on our panel. And please, our panel is going to now help us. What did we say here today? What are the things to take away from here? These kinds of dialogues are not ordinary, and they are not usually heard everywhere. So we have the special privilege, and we have selected specialized people who are going to do this panel, and they are going to help us a little bit, like reading what has been said here today, so that we can know what to take away and we prepare the report for the appropriate recommendations. So we ask the members of our panel to please come up. Sister Mary Brown, yes, they will come up here. Dr. Tanya Kamek, yes, please. Madam Eva Flomo, please, yes. Madam Goku Kandakai, and the president who is still based in action happens to be Dr. Lillian Mapaya. She will be joining us shortly. I hope. This panel should not go between maybe more than 35 minutes, so that we can be able to wrap up and know how to run our conclusions. Do you notice something special about this panel? Yes. What is it? Strong women. Somebody just believe us. Very strong women, right? Yes. Thank you so much for that, and welcome.
Yes, we took notes, and we had such pertinent topics,
especially with reference to the Accra Peace Accord. And I think there's a thread that ran through all the presentations. And some of the things I gathered are the following. One, the incompletion of processes, whether it was disarmament or whether the rehab process. We started something and we didn't finish it. And I also gathered that one of the reasons why these things were not completed, in most instances they were dependent on donors where what they gave, and they gave what they wanted to give. So you can't force somebody to give you more than what they want to give willingly. Another point was support was dependent too much on external resources, and there was little community involvement. And I think a lot of the experts who presented also brought that out. Some of the projects or things that we go about, we have to involve those who are directly affected. Another point that I gathered was the appeal needed for national development and sustainability, and also for self-improvement. We have the Ministry of Planning. I know it has been absorbed into another ministry, but in some countries, the Ministry of Planning sets the tone. They do the research as to what the country needs, and they inform institutions accordingly, tertiary institutions in particular, so that they will be able to put out the necessary people that are equipped to do the neighborhood. And before I pass it on to my colleague here, let me just say that the last speaker brought out the lack of appreciation for Tibet education. And that is true to a very large extent. People want their children to earn degrees, whether those degrees are functional or not, so long you have the paper. But we had a Liberian plumber, he has since died. Some of you may know him, Mr. Bruce. And I remember Mr. Bruce sending his children to one of our schools. And he said when he went abroad to learn plumbing, he wasn't encouraged. And people used to say, can you imagine being a plumber and you know what a plumber does? That profession enables him to be, I think, above the middle class level, because Mr. Bruce was able to live very, very comfortably in Liberia. On that note, I will pass it to my colleague and let her do her additions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My take away from here today is the fact that there was no durable solution to the Accra Peace Accord. I think it looked more like a quick fix, because a lot of things were left hanging. We talk about reintegration, and who were those people who were supposed to be reintegrated? One of the highlights there was the issue of the ex-combatant, the issue of the warlords. They were just put scratch tape on and introduced into the communities. And so we left the community vulnerable. As much as we will say, oh, that's my brother, that's my sister, that's my mother, but when you went in a corner, you would say, you see that man sitting down there? He did this to my mother, he did this to my father. And those sentiments were not considered. And I want to agree that we still have some serious security problems in the country. Another takeaway is on the issue of land. The war is over, people have returned home, and their lands have been taken away by very powerful people, very strong people, and they have tried everything and they still can't get their land back. That person is still unhappy. Then we look at the social impact. Here is a family that all of a sudden have come face to face with their own children. Because remember now some of our children went into this room. And they have come face to face with their own children, and they are in a community. And it's going to be hostile, which will have a multiplier effect even on the family that are living there. So I think we need to embrace the war and economic ground so that we can have final closure. Because if you see our children who are in their 30s, who are in their 40s, they are romanticizing with this war. And every time you listen to one of them, oh, we are ready for this, we are ready for that, and we are prepared. That's because those instigators, those planners that put us into this 14, 50 years plus war are showcasing themselves. They are around us. Some of them are in very good positions. And so it becomes like, hey, if he could do that, and this is the benefit, then of course what's about me? So I think we need to revisit the accord and really put in place a system that will make everybody happy. We talk about dispute resolution. I like to mention the Gataka model. I know in this country we have the peace spot, but what the Gataka model did, it brought the victim and brought the perpetrator face to face. It was domesticated. So even in the villages, you have that where people can go and say, look, you killed my chicken, and that was my woman. And that was his father. So that person will have to apologize, make amends, and then they will make the village whole. So I think we should enhance our Palava model and bring it down to earth, where the Yabba in the village will sit there and tell the Flomo, yes, you did this to me, and the Flomo should be honest enough and say, I am sorry. I think what we need to say sorry. This issue of reconciliation, moving the country forward, will be even faster. Because every time you sit, you think on something, you see the person around, even if you saw the person turning around, sometimes you get very upset. And so we cannot continue to keep those grudges in our minds and say we are happy people. So that for me is a sound recommendation that's my takeaway. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our mothers here. What has spoken so far, so I wouldn't delve into that. What I can reiterate is that provisions embedded within the Accra Comprehensive Peace Agreement, like she mentioned, like quick fixes, but I would say the band-aid that covers the soul, but does not really cure it properly. And so we need to be intentional about what we want. What do we need to do moving forward? One of the things, aside from all of the things that have been said, one of the things that actually is more concerning to me, and I must mention that, it has to do with the issue of the drugs. Look at the aspect of rehabilitation, and look at the aspect also of reintegration. The drugs trade in this country, we know there's a fight. People are fighting, oh yes, we want to make sure our communities are drug-free. The institutions that have the opportunity or have been given that leverage to work in our communities. We have the Liberian National Police, we have the immigration, we have the DEA. I'm sorry the LDA person didn't show up today. But these are institutions that need to be strengthened. These are institutions that should be occupied by people who are sincere. People who are sincere, they know exactly what they are doing. They shouldn't be people who have been drug pushers before. They did not test them. They didn't do a background check on them, but they just brought them and said, okay, they're lead. How can you bring, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody and say, okay, somebody's occupying, a position at this institution and the person is a drug addict. No, that's not what I'm saying. Do a background check, thorough background check on who is heading or those who are heading our institutions. Make sure that their hands are clean. Probably they will have some secrets that is going to be difficult for you to unravel. But do a thorough background check. And then the question that lingers, I know a lot of people who want to ask, how come here? How do they enter this place? We have our borders. The securities are there, manning the borders. But we talk about, okay, we have porous borders across this country. Agreed. But the ones that you are able to make, the people you put there, how luxury are they? How willing are they to say, okay, we're ready to check, everybody come with check and make sure anybody with drugs will not do? Are we sure people are not compromising along the way? Even at our airports, I'm very sure the drugs are passing through there. Who are the ones orchestrating these things? Then it leads us to wonder in terms of who are the ones out there. They said, our people have a common saying, the fish gets rotten from the head. True or false? True. Thank you. So you deal with the situation from the head. Then another question arises. Who is the one at the head? That's the big question. How do you find it? It's a question I'm not too sure whether we'll be able to answer. But we need to work from that level of government institutions, all of those who are in policy positions, that they are able to implement these policies. Let them do their work. The proliferation in the drug trade, it's just too much. And they'll say, trying to compare here with abroad. But they have their systems, even though they got their drug problems there too, but they have systems there. And they can work with them. Clamp down on traffickers. Well, we see isolated cases, for example, that I was reading in the newspaper that, this person was coming through the airport and not them, and another person came, they were bringing the drugs along with them, they arrested them. Things that you would just notice if it comes within the public domain. But that's it. Whereas there's a bigger problem that's sitting somewhere, somebody in authority who got money, they are the ones who can say, yes, let this one go. Somebody said, oh, that coming, don't play with it at my interest. You small officer, what can you do about it? Nothing. But you don't know what's in that cargo. This is all my life. So if it comes to a big inside, let us spread across. They say, I'm not walking like this, somebody else stand like this, they don't have to go back. Big heads tend to be playing the nasty games. But then who suffers at the end of the day? It is the smaller ones. The one where we can call the backless, the plebs, they are the ones who suffer. Some of them are from poverty-stricken homes. Some from well-to-do, peer pressure will carry them. Some of them, former combatants, who were child soldiers, they were not properly rehabilitated. Nobody helped them. And so they just found their way, solution to their own problem. Some of them are orphans. So how do we settle the matter? We need to strengthen our laws on drugs. Strengthen our policies in the fight against drugs. Let it not just be lip service, but let's do it in actuality. Let there be tangible results that will be felt. Then people will know that at least there is something that is happening. At the end of the day, you also want to strengthen drug control agencies or institutions, like the LDEA. I don't know why this guy didn't show up today. But they need to be around to really handle this thing robustly, so that we can have some solutions to this drug problem. It's just too much. Just a few days ago in Soap Clinic, 4 promising boys that were lying down, dead. Those ones could be the next doctors, the next ministers, the next president, who knows? But they're dead because of the drug trade. So please, key among my recommendation will be, please, there may be, a few rehab centers, but how much support do they have? The onus is upon the government to build rehabilitation centers. Build them. Take these people from the streets. Train people who can go through there and treat these people, clean them up. Clean them up nicely. And when you clean them up, that's when now you link them to treatment programs. Because if the man's brain is clear, then he can think. But if that brain is fried, there's nothing he can do for himself. So we need to link this rehab seriously. From this drug rehabilitation, we need to link it with TVET. Let it be done in a robust way. And don't forget, these people live in communities. You need our community involvement. Let people get involved in this thing. Because it is families that are getting affected, people got the children dying, people got the children that are becoming useless, and they were never created to be that way, and they become liabilities of society. How do we handle that? I will stop for now, because I don't want to forget that.
Thank you. And I will not repeat what has already been said. I think I definitely agree with all of those points. But as an academic, perhaps allow me to come back to a little bit of theory. And there's a concept that for me kind of summarizes a lot of the things that we discussed today. We may not be referring to it as this, but we've been talking about the society. How do we strengthen the society for long-term peace, right? For sustainable peace. And there's a concept called negative and positive peace. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this concept. I know all about what Kofi and Annan scholars will be. Negative peace refers to the absence of violence and war, right? So in our context, we have achieved negative peace. We don't have quite the level of violence, of course, and war that we used to have. But then on the opposite side, we have positive peace. And how do we define positive peace? Attitudes, institutions, structures that create and sustain a peaceful society. Basically, the presence of conditions that prevent violence from occurring in the first place. And here I would like to remind us that these things that we're talking about are actually positive peace. The war has ended, but our society is still not yet strengthened to sustain this peace. Are we addressing structural injustices? And here I would like to make the link as a gender specialist to gender-based violence. It was mentioned earlier briefly. But how can we say we have positive peace with the level of gender-based violence that we experience every day in our society? It tells us that we really don't have peace at the root, right? There may be an absence of war, but if women's bodies are not at peace, then there's no real peace. And there was a study that was done by a scholar named Caprioli, where she demonstrated the link between high levels of gender-based violence and conflict. Meaning where you have high levels of gender-based violence, you tend to always have conflict. So until we really address the violence that goes on every day in terms of gender-based violence, we will never have sustained peace. So I want us to not forget that. I think that's an important point. My second key takeaway has been mentioned several times, but I'm wondering what concretely are we going to do to address psychosocial and mental health issues in our country? Because really, again, we have peace that's, the negative peace, but positive peace will be difficult to address unless we really tackle mental health. There's a Liberian psychotherapist by the name of Dr. Peter Roberts. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the work, but I'm eager to link a report that she's doing on the link between PTSD and malgovernance. And she tried to explain how a lot of the issues that we're facing in Liberia are linked to the level of PTSD that we still suffer, and that just goes undiagnosed and unhealed. Because no matter how much money you throw at a development problem, if the mindset and the mental health is not correct, you will never solve that issue. Arguably, for the last 22 years, we've had a lot of funding in lots of different areas, but we keep turning around in circles because we have not really addressed the mental health challenges that we face. So I want us to also think about how are we really going to do that. I think national healing is part of that, addressing PTSD, hence why the war crimes court, as has already been mentioned, is a critical piece, because how do you have healing without justice? It's difficult to tell someone to heal from something when they've seen no justice. So I think the war crimes is important, but also there are other things that we can do for collective healing and rehabilitation. Memorialization, as was mentioned, is a form of collective healing. Are we making an effort to really create sites of memory and memorials that will help us heal as a nation? In Rwanda, for example, we have what they call the Bibuka. I don't know if anybody has been to Rwanda or studied the Rwanda peace process. I know my sister was talking about the Bashasha courts. But the Bibuka is the time of remembrance. It means remembrance. It's an April where the entire country slows down. It's a period of remembrance. People are allowed to take time off work. They're allowed, there's one particular day, I think it's April 7th, where the country totally shuts down. But the month up to that, April 7th, is reserved for national remembrance and healing. So it means that the government has recognized that people are still healing from the trauma of the war, that they create space for people to heal in that time, their events, their different all of the memorial sites. There's an intentional effort to recognize as a nation. And I think it's something simple that we can do. We take days off for other random things. Why do we not have a war commemoration day or some kind of other day that allows us to take time off to really reflect on where we've been? You know, one of they always say never again, right? Or remember, right? So we need to think about how we can really memorialize either through sites or through national days as a means of healing and establishing that positive peace that we need. So those are my key takeaways. Thank you very much.
All right, the mics are there, but I will have my microphone. I will just turn back to the panel. Is there any particular closing comment, because we want to reserve the Q&A in order to save time? Is there one thing you probably missed in what you wanted to say that you'd like to also throw out, just a second chance for you, 1 minute each? Anyone? Did you say all you had in mind? Are you sure? Yes. All right. Okay, thank you. All right. We want to encourage you. I know people sit here, there are a lot of things. I think the panel has really captured a lot of things. And I'm very happy for Dr. Annan for giving me perspective. But there are concerns you have. Please just note them down, send it. We will keep this as an ongoing dialogue. There are a lot of things we cannot conclude here today, but we will hope that we will have this platform to be able to move forward. I really want not to go too far beyond the 2 o'clock, But please, 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 let me have your endorsement. I think it's an honor for the Minister of Youth and Sports to have really made it to stay with us here. I would like to give him 2 minutes to just greet us, if nothing else but to say we really appreciate you. Please give us a word, Mr. Minister. Thank you for being here with us. Please, you'll give me that privilege.
Well, all observed, and let me just say, perhaps, rather than make a comment, I'll be asked for proper emotion. And if I have a proper emotion, that emotion is everything that has been said here, including all of the comments and suggestions from the groups and the panelists are so valid. I second the motion. So 10 years ago, I graduated from Kofi Annan Institute. That's the last one. Thank you, Prof, for being so passionate about the school. Everything that has been said is tied to what we do at the Ministry of Youth and Sports. And so, I will also be listening with the Prof to get the feedback and the recommendations so that we can improve upon them and work on those recommendations. The Ministry of Youth and Sports has spent third quality designation is supposed to be dealing with people between the ages 18 and 35. So if you were born 1990, this is your last year being a youth. So if you were born after 1990, then the likelihood of you being around when the ICT war took place would be narrow. That means if troubles are still being created, they may be created not because you were a particular, I'm talking about the current youth, but perhaps because everything didn't go well, it spilled over. So that's where the reintegration, the rehabilitation, and everything that the panelists are talking about will come in. And there has been a long debate as to whether the disarmament and reintegration was successful or whether it wasn't. My big aim was to also listen to the small arm commission to see statistics and numbers from them as to which kind of arms are still around. Because we heard 100,000 arms were taken away from people. 100,000 people were disarmed, among them about 27,000 child soldiers, about 10 million ammunition were taken away. All of these numbers were given us. In addition to that, in peace studies, culture is also key. So we need to do some studies and find out certain things. So the place behind the ministerial complex, why is it referred to as far forward? So somebody says that's where armed soldiers used to be, and when they bring the arms, they give them 540 US dollars. And so some of the challenges I assumed later on with the disarmament process was that there were more civilians who came and said they were also fighters. Because if you want to get passports, so they also knew where the arms were being hidden, so they would go and steal it and bring it, and they would get their passport. So the numbers may not have been accurate in terms of the actual combatants, but in terms of the retrieval of the arm, it was successful. The panelists talk about the role of government, if we accept the suggestions of the government's role. Government is doing a lot. Eventually, Prof, I would like for you to blend this with a conversation with the multi-sectoral task force on drugs and substance abuse, so that we can come and make a presentation, so that you can see what the government is doing. You see the 350-bed neuropsychiatric hospital that has been built in Bentonville. You see the rehabilitation of the girls and boys dormitory at the Youth and Recreation Training Center in Bentonville that has been transformed now for rehabilitation, like she talked about. That, when completed, will take up to 1,000 entrants of clients for rehabilitation. So there's just a lot more that has been done. But we have been asked to just make 2 minute remarks. So I would like to yield and submit and say, I second the motion. I second the motion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I know first the minister, at least we are glad he didn't go more than 10 minutes. All right. Thank you again. This has been a wonderful time. We will now ask one of our co-organizers, Dr. Mama Salif Annan, who will bring closure to this forum.
Questions and answers. Excuse me, somebody said something.
Sorry?
Where's the questions and answers section? It's on Q&A.
I just want to respect that we said the section of the forum will be from 9 to 2 this October. I want to respect it. It's all right. If we can take a 10-minute Q&A, let's accommodate it. That's good. Especially the day of the summer holidays.
Ladies and gentlemen, I was responsible for Rwanda with the United Nations. Rwanda, Congo Brazzaville, and all of the crisis countries. We participated and heard the development of what was happening, and I want to compliment all of you all. But at the same time, we talk about peace-loving people in Liberia. We are not peace-loving people. What you said about positive and negative peace is important. We keep fooling ourselves. We keep fooling ourselves. All of what you've done here today, all of this excellent, important contribution to the multi-sectoral program, the jobs that the President has put up. And I think it's not only for them to listen to it, but the results of this must be part of it. What happened to the recommendations from last year? You come up with extremely beautiful recommendations. So what happened? Nothing happens to it. These recommendations must be actioned. Action for this nation to move forward. Too much talk, talk, talk. Too much talk, talk, talk. It is extraordinary what has come out here. And on the issue of ticket, and people not having role models, do you know the first ticket in this country was BWI? Do you know why BWI came about? BWI came about because when President King was leaving America, they said to him, Mr. President, what do you want? What do you see here? He said, that's Tuskegee. Because it is Tuskegee and what it was all about that gave my people the wherewithal, you understand, to build a nation. So, in saying there's no models, there are models. Gabriel Tucker, they all went to BWI. And there was this other man, was it Elias Sidibe, who did the first flight? Can you imagine a Liberian who went to BWI. There was the flight pilot, like Grace. He came over the oceans. So there are models, and we must bring these models to the attention of the young people today. On the drugs issue, I turned 79 years old this year. From the time I was 75, I've been putting in the papers, 2021, that we need to tackle this drugs issue. We did nothing until there's a crisis. It is a crisis that we're going to do something about. And we thank the President for his multi-sectoral committee. Mr. Minister, let what has come out of this be a part of the operationalization of the results of the multi-sectoral committee and the organization that took place the other day. We have to do it. Too much talk. All this stuff we're talking about Bensonville. When I was Minister of Commerce and Industry, we sent people to Benin, okay? To Benin and other places for the agriculture. Nothing happened. We let things go down. What you are doing is great, but let's move this and make things happen. That's what I have to say, and I want to commend you. I want to commend all of you. But let us not leave this as recommendations. We've had enough recommendations. Let's take action. Madam Minister, from Minister of Foreign Affairs, let's move it. Let's move this thing. It's too much talk, recommendations. Let's operationalize the recommendations. That's what we do. I think the psychosocial thing is critical. The psychosocial, my God, we are a traumatized nation. We are a traumatized nation. Let's do something about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you much. Thank you.
We are told that some of the harms of the war are still in the communities. Are we seeing signs that these arms are springing up and being used maybe in armed robbery or in fights in communities? If they are still in the communities, is there any sign that people are using them for negative reasons or they just bury it?
We will ask some of our security personnel to see if they have something to share with us and come and let's just straight forward.
Thank you so much, and thank you. I got two issues. One, the issue of, in terms of our public service and civil service, even our innovation, we give preference to degree rather than role. So the issue of TVET, in Somalia, no matter the level of skills, we will prefer the person who get a degree will get a higher innovation. So we ourselves in the public service disqualify the issue of TVET. So people come from TVET, so people want to see the other people and want to say, I need to get a degree also, so there's another issue. The next thing Sister Lawrence talked about, which is very important, we came from urban planning and thing that we discussed about. We reduced, we were merging the Ministry of Planning with that of the Ministry of Finance. We reduced the whole planning ministry to a bureau. When you find planning now, because we're assistant minister, and you find out that so all the table to discuss our planning, all the issues, one after the war, you find out planning should be a relevant issue that all the ideas coming about to sit on the table. So you find out now, you can everything in our country is on finance. So you got the ministry they give up as the deputy minister for budget, deputy minister for what? For finance, as compared to planning. Thank you very much.
Yes, we will have to put that on again.
Thank you so much. The panelists have already expressed everything that I believe we needed to know. We came from the civil crisis with broken homes. Our social structure were all broken. And we came straight from rehabilitation and all of those ones. We elected people who were not counseled well. And because of all of this different broken structure, our system is more political right now. It's difficult to have a sustainable program in the direction of sustaining or having positive peace. Because appointment and all of these programs are political. Now we have the sectoral committee that the president talked about. Who are those who are going to be involved? Like one of the speakers talked about, who are those being appointed to positions of trust when it comes to drugs? What have been their past record? So until our leadership and our program become more sustainable, it's difficult for us. So we ourselves now, especially the program we run, it has to be community driven. We cannot look up to government because some of those appointed are even traumatized. Because how are those positions? When it comes to leadership about how to really fulfill all of what happened in the drugs crisis, who are the shadow actors? How are the drugs coming in our country Liberia? So many of those people who were in the street the other day, some of them are also part of the cartel. So we ourselves have to take ownership of our own crisis and our peace to make it positive. We have the drug issue, we have the gender issue, the rape cases, we have the docket that's so huge right now. Most of those cases have been on docket for so long while the victims die in silence. So we ourselves need to rise up and take ownership that will not only act when there's crisis. So thank you to the panelists again.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think one question, because I think most of it are recommendations, the one question was if there are some of the guns that were used during the war, and some people did disarm and when they hid those guns somewhere, wherever, are some of these guns resurfacing and being used in crime? If any of our security actors here have anything to share on this, that would be great. Thank you. Quickly.
So to answer that question, the weapon that was discovered in the community is not functional. A weapon that was very long ago. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
So the issue of the armed robbery, I would want for you people to know that they are single barrel guns that people take from Guinea and they are using it to commit armed robbery, not the weapons that people use during the war.
So thank you. Let me say thank you to the panelists brilliant presentation. So your question, coming from the Arms Commission, we are working with the police and the armed forces of Liberia. Most of the arms now we have probably are the explosives. In arms control, we call them EODs, that is the all explosive ordinances. They are in the communities, all lives, because they bury them. Some of them bury them, people bury them, forget where they are or they die. So people will make a farm, they will discover those explosives. I know when you're facing the war somewhere in Babylon, huge stockpile explosives there. The communities one of the airmen, the only security agencies that have expertise to go and gather those explosives. They're dangerous and they're in the communities. For firearms, some of the firearms that they tell us are damaged. I know most recently, Western Cluster was digging while they were mining. They discovered huge stockpile of lot of arms. Well, thankfully, most of the stick part, the woody part, all got rotting, so they just the iron. But people who are experts can use those parts and manufacture firearms. So we are concerned by the Arms Commission. So we go collect those obsolete weapons and destroy them. So what we should be concerned with are the explosives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister Maki, thank you for letting us do this. At least we got some opinions in. And hopefully our repertoires will capture this. Again, finally, do you have authority to share on any of the our race? Yes, I think it's very happy. Maybe people think I'm so passionate about this thing because it's destroying our people, but in the communities, the various communities that we live in, you just need to check There are people in our very communities that we live in, and the same ones who are selling the drugs. There are people in our communities shielding them. Please, you're not doing well. Report that particular person. Let them arrest them so they can clear that area. So communities were very, very nice. You could put something outside there, it will lead them until the next day. But nowadays, now they are even removing your anger bars and going inside because of these same drugs. Seriously, the crime rate is too much. So if you know anybody in the community who is selling drugs, you can be fooled. Please report them. And I'm hoping that when they report them, they'll be able to arrest them and the drugs will be settled for that community and not to go and do something else. Thank you.
I think, yes, we need to say something. The Bible says, train up a child in the way that he should grow, so that when he grows, he cannot depart from him. I am just appealing to our families, our parents. They too have a role to play. And you know, sometimes it starts very small. You tell a child, don't go so. You go there and smile about it. The child is, there's something in the school, you go there, you don't ask, you go shouting, you go insulting, you go abusing. Why did you do this to my child? Those are causes that can be elevated to where we have to be. So our parents must also be very strong in making sure that this country is strong. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's give another hand to our panel. All those who have made wonderful contributions. Thank you. I will now again call Dr. Salif Annan, our co-organizer, who will give us the closing section of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Dad. Good afternoon, everyone. So we have a resounding, let's walk and talk, let's shame those who are causing harm in our society when it has to do mainly with drugs. They live with us in our communities. Let me say all protocols concerned. And today, many years ago, we have come to reaffirm the objective of promoting better relations among ourselves in Liberia by ensuring a stable political environment in which our people can live in freedom under the rules of law and in true and lasting peace, free from any threats of security. Today, we have looked at the processes leading to our peace process. We look at the issue of disarmament. We have discussed rehabilitation. We also look at closely reintegration. And we all agree that we have some mistakes. But because of our commitment, our peace might not be positive, but we are surviving as a country without war. I think that we should clap for ourselves. Now we live here, we do not have gun firing, we do not have bundles on our heads, carrying them around for those who live in the war. So we have come to re-strategize and reflect on the various steps in order to strengthen our peace process. The recommendations that we have looked at today, are they doable? I will say yes. Yes, they are. They are. The issue of reintegration, for example, we all live in communities. We live with families. We know who our community members are. And we know through whispers who some of the bad people are. Can we expose them? We have whistleblowers. Yes, it is part of what we do. So when we leave from here, let us have a collective approach and we commit ourselves to ensure that we work towards positive peace. Also, the issue of rehabilitation, the issue of vocational education. We all need to collectively learn how to appreciate vocational education. A lot of people in this country went to vocational schools. BWR, for example. BWR is a very good vocational school. I went to BWR. I did architecture drafting. And through that, I was able to send myself to college. And there are many other persons who went to vocational and technical schools. And today, there are honorable people in our society. So what we need to do is to step up the awareness on vocational education, the benefits to the children as a stepping stone to a better life. As a stepping stone for a better life. And to do that, we need to start with the parents. So look at vocational and technical education as a positive step to the development and growth of our children. So let me also say that as we have come to recommit ourselves, whether we come from government, we come from civil society, we are community members, let us commit and recommit to making our communities better and to strengthening our peace and to ensure that in Liberia we have a good lifestyle and that peace is the way forward. So again, let me say that our recommendations are doable. Let us work together. Sometimes we don't know the power that we have. Sometimes in civil society, we can raise more money than government institutions. So it means that we can make changes in our communities, in our country. So let us use all our efforts and let's work together as Liberians to keep sustaining our peace. One of the speakers said, peace is good for everyone. So let us embrace peace. And let me thank all the organizers, the technical experts, University of Liberia, everybody that came here today to make this program a success. Let me say a big thank you to all that. Thank you to you and your staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, I think you heard me welcome you on behalf of the President of the University. So she was shocked to be here. So she has now come. And somebody said the program already finished. But now we would want to kindly ask you to just please greet and say a few comments. Thank you so much for staying joining us despite that we are very busy.
Thank you. Even though this event is just wrapping up, I feel thankful that at least I was able to pop in because the occasion is an important one. And it was important that the Kofi Annan Institute for Conflict Transformation stood up to recognize this event and put today's conference together. So I am here because I care about this event and this issue, and I'm thankful to everyone who made it a big success. So let me start by just saying to our distinguished expert presenters, members of the panel, other platform guests, Professor Cindy, of course, wherever you have to, there you are, run around too, and your hardworking team, as well as any other members of the University of Liberia Cabinet, other members of the University of Liberia family, members of the Fourth Estate, ladies and gentlemen. It's with profound honor that I join you to celebrate this and actually help you close out the 22nd anniversary of the signing of the Accra Comprehensive Peace Accord. This historic agreement marked the end of years of civil conflict and opened a new chapter of peace, reconciliation, and democratic renewal of Liberia, which I'm sure you spent the day talking about. As we reflect on that pivotal moment in this nation's history, we're reminded that peace is not simply the absence of war, it's the presence of justice, accountability, and inclusive development. The Accord provided a foundation upon which our nation can begin to heal, rebuild its institutions, and restore hope for its citizens. We owe a debt of gratitude to the economic community of West African states, of course, ECOWAS, as well as the African Union, the United Nations, and all of our international partners, many of whom are here, who stood with us at our most difficult hour. Most importantly, we pay tribute to the Liberian people, whose resilience and determination made peace possible and whose continued commitment sustains it. It's worth noting that among the most notable features of the peace process was the involvement and the impact of Liberian women on the outcome. While their influence was largely informal, it played a decisive and historic role. The world learned from this example, and the politics of gender and security have never been the same since. And I point that out in part because that was my own entry point into understanding this important historic occasion as a person who formerly was a gender studies professor. At the University of Liberia, we recognize that preserving peace requires constant investment in education, research, and leadership development. Through our Kofi and Annan Institute for Conflict Transformation, we continue to train young leaders and scholars who are equipped with the skills and values needed to prevent conflict, foster reconciliation, and build sustainable peace. Peace building is part of the fabric of the University of Liberia. In fact, I hope that many of you have taken note that just yesterday we launched the invitation for our new Gender and Security Studies graduate programs, both Master's and PhD. This anniversary is a wonderful development. I'm very proud. This anniversary is not just a time for remembrance, but a call to action. We must ensure that the lessons of the past remain alive in the consciousness of our youth. We must confront emerging challenges, whether political, economic, or social, with the same spirit of dialogue and compromise that guided the process leading us to where we are today. On behalf of the University of Liberia, I extend appreciation to our national leaders, our civil society actors, our international partners, and all who have remained steadfast over the years in their commitment to peace. Together, let us pledge to continue the work of transforming conflict into cooperation and division into unity for the progress of Liberia and everyone else who is touched by Liberia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, we started half hour late. We are half hour overboard. So we hope this will not just be gender balance, it's also time balance. But I think we have done very well. As we leave from here today, people, we have heard enough. I guess it's not just a day. This is an important landmark in our national drive. A time given to Liberia to rebirth itself, but also the challenges of what do we incorporate in our journey to foster our commitment to all the agreements we made. Somebody has said Liberia is very good at signing a lot of these international documents, but to institutionalize and implement them in Liberia becomes the challenge. Let this not be the same. We have to make this commitment, and we want to work towards peace. The commitments in these agreements are great. There are actors who are currently very committed. Let's begin working with those as we encourage those who have not expressed the full commitment to joining this drive for national peace. Thank you once again. I want to thank my co-organizers, Ms. Jonathan here, Dr. Coleman, Fatima, Titus. I don't see everybody. Did everybody leave the hall? Dr. Sari, a lot of people. Can you come up at least? We want to just see you. We want to, this was not put together by rocket scientists. This was not put together by, angels from outer space. These are ordinary people who came together and worked to say we can celebrate this gracious occasion. So thank you all. Thank you especially. This is our small team. One of our key members is not here today. She had a little conflict of schedule and so forth, so could not be here. We want to thank Eva is on the panel, but she and Cooper coordinated all of the media processes, and we want to say thank you so much. And especially I'd just like to join Dr. Kanye again to thank all of us who have made this a wonderful celebration. May the 22nd anniversary of the Accra Peace Accord gave us impetus to be able to say we can consolidate peace, we can take out the fragility that describes our peace, and make sure we have a peace that will be our greatest potential for national growth and development.
That's it for the
And as we
celebration.
conclude peace, we have a small lunch prepared behind, so you just have a small
Well, folks, this is how we
takeaway.
come to the end of this all important broadcast of occasion marking the 22nd anniversary of the Accra Comprehensive Peace Agreement. My name is Kofi. Thanks for watching.